It's Friday, March 15th, 2024. Start off with our shill segment, in which I tell you that you can go to patreon.com slash, by the way, I assume everybody knows what this means. I often forget the difference between slash and backslash. So on the off chance, slash is where, at least I know it, as the top is facing to the right and the bottom is facing to the left. So I don't say that to make fun. I can't keep them straight. When people say backslash to me, backslash is where the top faces to the left and the bottom faces to the right. I may have that backwards. So when I say slash, if I've got it wrong, I don't want you to go to some weird Russian website or something. I'm talking about when I say slash or whatever, or whack whack is what I usually say, or whack. Bottom is to the left, top is to the right. So like I said, I say slash, assuming that I'm right and everybody knows that I'm on the same page as me. But that's a mistake. So just in case. Patreon.com, whack, Ozone Nightmare, whatever that means for you. You can go to the show homepage. You will see some rounded squares on your right. That I know for sure because they don't go to the left. So it's on the right, and I know what right is because it's the hand I draw with, right. Rounded squares, each one taking you to a different support avenue for different things. There's a PayPal logo, that's for the show. There's a little short book with a bookmark, that's for Lando's Amazon author page. There's a skull, that's my art links and all different support avenues through there. And then there is the YouTube page at the bottom, where you'll find all kinds of stuff. And there will be new video game stuff coming after Baldur's Gate because Lando and I have been playing through the survival mode on Sniper Elite 5, and that has made for some very funny video stuff, mostly us panicking. So that will be coming at some point in the future. I've already got, as of right now, I have 13 videos already.
That's what it is, isn't it? I mean,
it's very funny. Some of
oh shit, they're over here. Oh shit, they're over here.
Pretty much, yeah. So that's all the stuff you can do to support the show. Yeah, I think that's everything. I may have done, I have to check on the Buy Me a Coffee thing. I think I did that, but I don't think I put a link anywhere. So, or maybe I just did that for me. Whatever. The links are there. There's plenty of ways to do it if you want. Was there something else show related? Oh, I don't remember if you mentioned this on the show or not. I think you did. I think at one point you, being Lando,
yes,
had brought up the idea of us doing a live show, right? Do you remember this?
Oh, we joked around about it. Yeah, with Muppets.
We joked around. The Muppet thing was me and Doug were going to do the Muppet thing because there was no way that Muppet thing was going to work. But I do think I have a way to do a live show where we could do it on either Twitch or YouTube because I've been testing that out on my own and it works. And apparently there's a way to add another person into it. So in theory, if anybody cared, we could do that. I don't know if anybody cares, but we could. So
I don't know if anyone cares either.
I don't know if anybody cares either. But I think I know how to do it. So that's that. And we were talking right before the show started. I was mentioning to Lando, as I've mentioned a few times to him, not on the show, but off the show or in the ether of the real world somewhere or, wherever, that I've been reading the Clive Barker novel, The Scarlet Gospels, which I believe, unless there's been something else that's followed that is the, well, I won't say final, but the latest or most recent book where, actually, has he, hold on, I have a hunch he hasn't actually done anything with the Pinhead character since the first book in novel form. I know he wrote some comics, so before anybody says, oh, no, I know there were comics. but I believe that only in... I'm just looking. I don't think the character ever showed up in another book until this one. Whoa, man. Somebody did a really interesting redesign of that character. Okay, let me see.
I've never read any of the Hellraiser books.
Well, there's only 2, so I was right. So there's only the Hellbound Heart.
I've never read any of the 2. I've never read them. Let's put it like that. I've read a lot of Clive Barker, but I never leaned in that direction.
Well, apparently there was a novella called Hellraiser: The Toll, which is a bridge between Hellbound Heart and Scarlet Gospels. Okay. So I did not read that one because apparently it came after that. And plus it seems, from what I'm reading here, it's only kind of supposed to fill you in, which I don't think you even need that. But Hellbound Heart is a very short read. I mean, it's a thin book. I had the physical paperback, and it's, I want to say, 1.5 inches thick, if it's that much. It's short. I mean, I guess I don't know if it is a novella. It's not. It says novel here. So, yeah, it's a very short book. Scarlet Gospels, I don't know because it's on the Kindle, so I don't know how thick it is. It is 368 pages.
That's a good length.
Hellbound Heart is 186, so half. Well, more, about half. So yeah, 186. So yeah, followed by Scarlet Gospels. So there was nothing, and that was a 30-year gap. So he never went back to the character in book form for this whole time. I wasn't aware of that. I just had read, when Scarlet Gospels came out, there was a mixed reaction to it, which I don't, because it's from 2015, so I don't remember why people were kind of mixed on it. But I thought, you know what? I really don't care what people think. I want to see what the reaction is to it, or what my own reaction is to it, uninformed of what other people think. And I've been reading it, and it is, I mean, it's 30 years later, so it is not a surprise that it's a book that...
How long is time taken in the book?
It doesn't say. I mean, there's no indication
But the detective guy, he's not massively old, right?
No, Harry D'Amour is still, I would say
nondescript 30s, 40s.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Let me see if it says here. 2015. Does it say? And plus, the thing is that I believe they say time passes differently in hell. So,
well, yeah, but the detective isn't in hell.
Well, they end up there. Yes, actually, they got to hell a little while ago, which is a fascinating.
Oh, I know. But
place.
The beginning of the book is what.
No, in the beginning, he's just in New York, which, depending on who you are, you might consider hell. But I don't. I'm just saying that some people will make the joke that, oh, well, that's hell. So it's it doesn't say. I mean, there have been a number of years, but no, Harry D'Amour is still young enough that he's, jumping and rolling and, firing guns and stuff. So he's not 80 years old and somehow becomes magically young. He's just around. But he's got to be, I would guess he's supposed to be in his mid-40s. Because they talk about the fact that it's very clear when you look at him that he's had a hard life and, and people know him and has a history of getting into paranormal stuff and all this other thing. So... yeah, Occult Detective. What a great title. Yeah, that's what he is. And so reading it, I read up through, I think when we talked about this, I think it was either A Magic or Great and Secret Show was like the last book I had read by Barker. And early Barker, if you've never read it, there's a lot of gore.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of...
And it's very, and his magic and his gore are very wet.
There's
always a physical, there's always a physical representation. It's not ethereal. It's very
oh no,
chunky, messy tentacles and
it's like Slimer is every single character of his occult canon, where it's just there's some kind of
it's juicy
plasma that is left on you. Ejecta. There are creatures that are birthed often, and they're not dry when they come out. There's a lot of, I mean, even in this, I am not exaggerating. The first. I don't know how many books Harry D'Amour shows up in either.
Yeah.
I know he was in one of the Books of Blood short stories, I believe, is where Lord of Illusions comes from, if I remember correctly.
Yes, he was in that, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if any other books have been done with that. Actually, let's take a look. I'm curious. See, this is all stuff where Harry D'Amour, did he show up in... Oh wow, that's a really good image somebody did of him. That's a really neat image. Okay, let's see.
He's always going to be Scott Bakula, but covered.
Oh, I agree. Okay, so the stories with him: Last Illusion, which is Books of Blood, Volume 6. Lost Souls, a short story that was published in an issue of Time Out magazine. Was it ever collected? Wow, I guess doesn't indicate that it was. Books of the Art, the Books of the Art trilogy appears in Barker's Books of the Art trilogy of novels. Oh, Great and Secret Show. He's a small role. I barely even remember him in that. Everville, which I read. And the third book is yet to be published.
Really?
Interesting.
I don't remember him in the Great and Secret Show.
Well, it says small role, so he probably pops up for 10 pages. You know what I mean? It's probably something where somebody travels somewhere and they're like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Harry D'Amour. Who the fuck are you?" And they're like, "Oh, all right, well, nice to meet you."
Who the fuck am I? Who the fuck are you? Yeah.
Who the fuck am I? Who the fuck are you, you green-ass piece of shit?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, it doesn't sound like Scott Bakula, but close, I suppose.
No, very close. And then Scarlet Gospel. So really, he's only been in a few things. But I just rewatched Lord of Illusions again, which because I was reading this and I'm like, I want to see Scott Bakula in this role, and he's just great. So where was I going with that? Oh, so the introduction. So I don't know if this particular piece of backstory has ever been touched on at all in his other stuff. That at one point he was a New York cop who had a partner. And this is the very early stages of the book. The first thing we really get is Pinhead having killed the last of these magicians who had any type of magical threat to him. He wipes them all out, takes one of them as a servant, and then kind of goes back to hell. And then we jump to Harry D'Amour, and he's sitting in a bar, and he's remembering his time on the Force. And now, when all the magicians get slaughtered in the beginning, there's lots of the old sexual, juicy violence. So I went, okay, yep, this is Barker. You know, so he's lost none of this because it's
you know what? Yeah. I wonder if are you going to tell me that his sense of magic has changed? It's not juicy anymore?
No. It's not that. No.
Okay.
It's not that at all.
Okay,
no. It's not that it's not juicy anymore, but it is. It is less. In his older books, it's kind of like there are a few scenes that do not have some glimmer of viscera that is related to some kind of sexual body function. Almost no encounter.
Or just or a body function in general. I mean,
sure, okay.
Yeah.
But sooner or later they tend to tie back to some type of, I'll say juicy violence. Juicy violence. There's lots of juicy violence. And very few encounters don't end up where some character is drenched in something, whatever it is. It's very frequent, right? You would agree that it happens a lot. I mean, I'm not saying there's no stories. I'm saying that his big stuff tends to have a lot of that. And then you might have some downtime, and then suddenly a bucket of goo gets thrown on somebody again. So the opening where all the magicians get slaughtered, that I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I expected. This is it. Top to bottom, it's gore central, and two people are forced to copulate, and a demon baby is born in a very vicious fashion. I went, yep, okay, this is Clive Barker, got it, right back where we were.
Hey,
and then
we're back.
Yeah, and then after Pinhead leaves, then we shift to New York, and then everything dries out, and I'm like, oh wait a minute, this is unusual. There's long stretches here where we're getting character interactions where somebody isn't getting split in two, or having their eyeballs popped into the face of somebody else, or whatever. And so I started to think, maybe this is going to be a little bit of a different book than I expected, because it just seemed like we were moving, which is not bad. This is not a complaint. This is just an observation. And of course, 30 years. I didn't realize it was this long, but I knew it was a while.
All right, how long ago was this book written?
2015. 2015 book.
So he's 71 now.
Yeah, so that's 9 years ago, 65? No, 62. Yeah. 62, sorry.
62. So honestly, it could be also that he hormonally he changed, that maybe like the sexual aspect of him could have become less important.
Well, this is where the hard reset back to reality came.
Okay.
Because for a while I'm like, okay, yeah, this is different. I'm nothing bad. Again, no complaints here. I'm fine with this because, like I said, I haven't read books of his since the 90s. So if I had read every book, would this evolution seem gradual and not even noticeable? Possibly. The fact that the last books I read were right in his V8, V12 period of destruction. it might have been informing the shift for me. But then he's having this reminiscence of how his partner died. And he and his partner are going around. His partner is having sex with hookers, and Harry's tattoos start tingling. And he goes to get him and basically literally pulls the hooker off his partner's crotch. And the guy's like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, something bad's coming. We got to go. He's like, whatever you do, don't look back at whatever's going on over there because there was a goat. Because I like the whole thing where there's this nice setup where Harry, he doesn't always know exactly what's going on, but he has been trained to look for anything unusual of even a minor sort.
He's got the tingle.
Yes. And so what he says is like most people look around and they expect a demon or the devil or flames or whatever. And he says, in this case, it was a goat under a lamppost, and I knew that was not going to end well. I thought, I can see cinematically.
Wait, are they in the middle of the city?
Well, they're in like an alleyway or something.
Exactly. So. I'm going to put you right now. If in any point in your life you're in an urban environment and you see a goat under a lamppost, you walk the other direction.
Oh, no, I agree. But,
yeah, come on.
I'm not disagreeing, but the thing you would, again, in a Barker book, I'm waiting for him to turn around and there's some kind of hulking behemoth with fire eyes and horns, like Rawhead Rex, you know?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm just saying.
He's a little more subtle.
Well, okay. He can be subtle, and then Rawhead Rex can piss fire. So I'm saying.
Yes. No, go ahead.
You know, I wasn't sure.
I'm not going to disagree with you on this. Yes, there is a lot of that. Yeah.
And I thought what he was doing with the dry stuff was setting up this big land of something huge and fiery and wet. You know, so I'm like, oh, this will be it. But instead it's a goat. Don't get me wrong. We're going to get there. But they start running, at which point the partner looks back and sees a demon of some kind. And the demon looks at him and goes, oh, don't look at me. And starts chasing him and Harry. He shoots the partner, grabs Harry, and basically says to Harry, you have to watch him burn to death as I jerk off. And jerks off with Harry watching because he gets off on killing somebody and having a human being watch it. And I went, we're right back where I expected to be. This is what I fell for it and I thought, oh no, Barker's going a different, yep, masturbating demon while guy's skin bubbles. I mean, complete description of a person's face melting as this demon is ejaculating into Harry's back. It's magnificent. It's exactly what I thought.
Well, you know what? At least it was his back and not elsewhere.
I thought that was next. And the demon's like, nope, that's all I need out of you. And he just takes off and leaves Harry with it. Yeah, literally, he never at any point, the only threat to Harry is when Harry tries to close his eyes. He's like, don't close your eyes. And that's it. Other than that, he doesn't seem to have a problem with Harry.
I'm just here for the psychological damage. Thank you.
I mean, it was, I was very disturbingly pleased at the fact that Barker kind of found a different way to deliver exactly what I was waiting for. But that's what I mean. The book is different because there are different sensibilities where a lot of his creatures in the earlier books, in many of them, not all of them. I mean, I'm not saying blanket for everyone. This is not a blanket statement. But many of his great monsters didn't have really deep reasoning for a lot of the things that they were doing. The ones that I remember were kind of simple creatures of, basic engines.
There's almost a Cthulhu aspect to
yes.
When things got big, you were kind of like, you can't possibly understand this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas now Pinhead has some kind of motivations and design for what he's doing. He has, and I don't know what it is yet. Nobody really seems to know what it is yet. But he is dismantling hell for some reason. And I'm happy about it. I like the fact that
which he doesn't own, makes it more interesting.
No, Lucifer is there somewhere. They keep asking why he hasn't shown up. So I don't know whether Pinhead has killed him or what. And this too is a big...
So then what is the pantheon here? So you've got they're not Deadites, Jesus Christ, I almost called them
Cenobites.
The Cenobites. So you have the Cenobites, right? But there is a heaven and a hell and angels and demons here, right? Like
yes.
I'm kind of rusty on how much of the Christian mythology lays within the boundaries of this.
Okay. So this is what has changed, and maybe this is what has bothered people. When they first showed up in the first book, in Hellbound Heart, when the Cenobites show up, they are described as the Order of the Gash. Former humans that have become these things because they were so in love with the idea of the maximum like boundaries of pleasure and pain that they then became these things. Now, that first book never got into any of the real mythology of it. In fact, you could have been excused for thinking they were the only demons. The way this thing was.
That's what I thought. I thought this was a world of that they were it.
Okay, now where it gets interesting, and what a lot of people, I don't know how many people are aware of this or not, but Clive Barker wrote, I believe, the first 2 Hellraiser films. He only directed the first one, but he wrote, I believe, I'm verifying this right now, but if I remember correctly, he wrote the second one, which let's see, writer, yes, story, and producer for Hellbound Hellraiser 2. In Hellraiser 2, again, the first movie really doesn't get into their mythology. It doesn't. It's all about the human beings and Frank and all that, and Kirsty. The second one is where they go to hell, and you find out that the Cenobites serve something called Leviathan, which is this giant thing in the sky. And hell is the MC Escher world, where it's all the stairs and hallways. And it's great. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's magnificent. I am one of many who believe the second movie is the superior one of the whole thing. It's fantastic. So right there, Clive Barker started to expand what they were. But even there, it was... and Pinhead dies in that movie. Of course, he comes back. But all the Cenobites that we meet in the first movie, they're all killed by Dr. Channard when he is made into the new...
Oh, he takes over, yeah.
Yeah, the left hand of the Leviathan or whatever. And, and Julie's there and all the rest there. Julia's there. So, obviously, Barker had been toying around with the idea of expanding this universe. Of course, then after that, the movie I don't think did that well, and he kind of started doing other things. So now what they've done is it really feels very Christian in its mythology, where hell is there, there's the fallen angels, Lucifer is the fallen angel. Now the Cenobites are the Order of the... I believe they're called the Order of the Cenobites now. And I think one of their nicknames is Order of the Gash. And Pinhead is one of many. He's a hell priest. Of many hell priests. And he kills all the rest of his people.
Oh, really?
Yes. All the rest of the Cenobites are dead. And he's also killing other demons and generals of the underworld. And all.
So the idea that Pinhead now has agency of his own...
Well, that's the thing. And you find out he is ejected from his order. And that order has a head that is not him, called the Unconsumable, a being that is eternally on fire but cannot burn. And they find out that Pinhead has been killing magicians and hoarding their magic. And for some reason, that is a no-no. I don't know why. They haven't really explained that. They just say, no, you have been learning and keeping magical tomes. You're out.
Well, I can go on a limb on this one.
God. I mean, I'm sure it's a threat to power type of thing. But
No. I'm going to go out on a limb on this one. And this is biblical. So, I haven't read the Bible in a while, but I have read the Bible, and I have read several interpretations of the Bible and the mythology.
Sure.
And one of the things that is a common theme in the Old Testament, not the New Testament, because New Testament is a whole other fucking bag of tricks, but the Old Testament is that God is very jealous of his power, right? And beyond him, I think that the angels, well, not even the angels, the demons are very jealous of their power, but especially God. And when other people start to learn the art, it is one of the things that puts him up the fucking wall. So in the story of Adam and Eve, there's a whole thing in there about how it's not that God is pissed off that Adam and Eve, if they eat from the two trees, they will become gods, right? The tree of life and the tree of knowledge, right? And that's the thing is that's a key sequence in there, because it's God saying I'm kicking you out because otherwise you'll become gods like us. You know, gods, there's different interpretations if it's us or me, but God's like us, right? Jealous God doesn't want humans learning the power, right? And then when you get to the story of Noah and the flood, one of the reasons that God decides to destroy the world is because, is it the Gregorians? There's an order of angels that were living amongst humans, and they had started to teach humans the art of science, and was it science and music or math? I can't remember exactly what, but basically they started to teach them technical abilities that would give them power. They started to teach them things that they weren't supposed to know. And they were also started to have children with them, which really pissed God off, because now you had a bunch of angel-human hybrids. What's that?
I said, whoops, don't do that.
Yeah, so he said, fuck it, I'm killing everybody except for this drunk and his kids. And that's what he did. He wiped everybody out in that version of the story, and let the world start back up with the incestuous drunk and his kids. Yeah, it kind of works for the Christian mythology, this idea of the higher ups not wanting those beneath them to gain more power and more knowledge because it makes them a threat to you.
Okay, I looked it up. So it's the Grigori, so you were close.
The Grigori, okay.
Fallen angels who gave rise to a race of hybrids known as the Nephilim, who are apparently giants. Okay. Who mated with mortal women. So there you go.
Yep. Fun shit, huh?
They're known as the Watchers in Hebrew. Ooh. Wow.
I mean, not to get on a side thing here, but I do often wonder if all of this these Old Testament Bible stories, because all the New Testament is an entirely different game. But sometimes I wonder if this Old Testament stuff is like weird first people, alien shit.
There's lots of people who feel that. Yeah.
Because when you read it, here's the thing: a lot of people believe in the Bible, but a lot of people don't read the Bible. And when you actually read it, there is so much weird shit in the Old Testament. Like the New Testament was trying to make up for the fact that God was a maniac in the Old Testament, right? This is new Christianity with Jesus who loves you and everything is great. But the Old Testament, God was fucking mean. I mean, like the story of Job, where basically they let them destroy Job's life over a fucking wager with the devil, right? I mean, come on. But there is some really weird shit in there. And sometimes you'll talk about stuff with people who've never read the Bible and they don't believe you. That stuff because was it recently? Oh man, there's this guy who does these really fun sculptures. It's called Tiny Nerdy Things. My kids love them, and he did historically accurate sculptures of angels from the Bible. So I think he did like one of the seraphim, and he did something else, and it was like that one that's a giant eyeball with all the wings, and the other one that's like a spiral of eyes. Yeah. And my kids were like, "What the fuck is this?" I mean, they didn't say "fuck," but I'm starting to get the tone off my kids when they say something, and I'm like, "This is where the F word would go." But they're like, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "These are historically accurate angels from the Old Testament." And I said to him, I was like, "Not all of them look like this. Some of them look human-like." I was like, "But some of them look like fucking monsters." I was like, "And that's Christian mythology. It's been sanitized so that Jesus is like white and blonde and a Republican who loves guns. But when you get into Old Testament, man, it is just as weird and fucked up as any other mythology that has been believed in on this planet." I'm about done with a college course on the Vikings, and learning about the Norse mythologies and the shit they believed in was great, because it holds up that fact that it's all weird, man. It's always been weird. Everybody believed in weird stuff, weird stories that come out of nowhere, yeah. So, yeah. Read your Bible. It is one of the best sci-fi books you'll read. Like I do think everyone should read the Bible. It doesn't matter what religion you are. Actually, let me take that a step further. You should always read the religious books that a large group of people believe in. It's good for making conversation, and gives you an idea of what the backgrounds of these religions are, but also they make for really fascinating reading. They really do. And if you are someone creative, it may actually provide you with a lot of really fucked up imagery to pull on, aka Clive Barker here. Like he apparently, I was reading something that they said he does believe he's a Christian of sorts, and that he draws heavily from a lot of Christian mythology because it's there and it lends itself to his world. So anyway, so he's killing all the Cenobites.
He's killed, as far as I know, all of them. Yeah. And by the way, I did find a nice little summary of it. Oh, where did it go? There was a good summary that would give you an idea of, because I didn't see this, but where the hell? I just saw.
By the gods.
Wait. Here it is.
Yes.
Scott Gospels, here it is. Where'd it go? Anyway, it was a nice summary where it actually told me something that I didn't realize that would be a good summary for what you were asking me about it. Okay, here it is. Okay, where's the description? Faces off against this portal in the... whatever, fine, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so yeah, he has definitely changed the mythology of it. And I knew that he didn't... And this is directly in the book. Clive Barker did not ever like the Pinhead name. He hated it. Because he felt it was an undignified name for such a character. And the character of Pinhead feels the same way. So this is clearly, Barker is...
Well, he was called the Engineer originally, wasn't he?
Well, that's the other thing, too, is in the original, Pinhead was a female, and the Engineer was... Well, okay.
Yeah, this is the part that always confused me.
Only Clive Barker can answer this for sure. In the book, when the Cenobites showed up, none of them had names, except the Engineer. The Engineer was the leader, which is why most people say, oh, well, then that was changed to Pinhead in the movies because he's the leader, and he clearly is. But there was a female with the grid and the nails, except they were gold nails, which I believe they were in the new movie where they changed it back to a female, which I think that was a more faithful version of the character in many ways for the book. But the Engineer had a sun for a head. It was just a ball of erupting light. There was no face. It was a head on a body. Of a sun on a body. So that makes sense that they knew they weren't going to be able to do that for the movie. In the movie, the baby monster thing that chases Kirsty down the hall is referred to as the Engineer for some reason. But Clive Barker was in charge of that, so whatever. He made those changes. Who cares? But now, now that there's a whole order, there's no reason to think, not that they ever explicitly say this, but why would he be the only one who could have a grid on the head? So whatever, who cares,
And he's one of many.
He's one of this order that, he's now killed, and he's unleashed a fog on hell that makes everybody grow multiple versions of many of their body parts. So if you get the fog in your eye, you suddenly have eyes growing in your eyes, growing in your eyes. There's one where they cut him open and all these eyes fall out. It's crazy.
Oh God, anyway, that sounds painful.
Oh,
okay.
And so basically, he's got all this magic. You don't really know why, but he unleashes a deadly swarm of origami birds, which is great. Because at first I thought they were birds, and then he's like, no, they're paper birds or origami birds. I'm like, oh, okay, and these are terrorizing. For some reason in hell, I guess they don't like origami. I guess. It's not really clear.
Origami!
Yeah, now don't get me wrong. I'm only halfway through the book. It's, 300 whatever pages. But I just looked up quickly to see what the reviews were, and a lot of people don't like that there is so little unending gore. They think there's too much urban fantasy as opposed to hooks and hell. So
but the urban fantasy. I prefer the urban fantasy aspect of Clive Barker, because the urban fantasy is what roots it to some kind of connectable reality.
Well, I'll say this: there's two things about the book I really, really, really like. Outside of the fact that I think Barker has lost none of his ability, which I didn't think he had, but it happens. I think the balance between the urban fantasy and the horror elements is exceptionally good. I like how it's bouncing back and forth. To your point about it's nice to have the grounding element. Harry D'Amour is a great character. I like him a lot. I like his reactions to things. All that stuff is great. So I think the balance is fine. These people whining about too much horror, go read the older stuff. You'll be much happier. The other thing is, and this is sort of stupid, but it isn't because of the way it's being done, is the fan service element of Harry D'Amour and Pinhead running into each other is great because it's about the same ratio as Wrath of Khan, where they're almost never in this. I mean, in Wrath of Khan, they are never in the same place. So just want to be strictly correct.
No, and they only
speak.
They only speak twice
through a view screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, there are a couple of instances. Pinhead tries to have his little lackey kill Harry D'Amour right away.
Yeah, but
and Harry escapes.
But what works with Wrath of Khan, right, is that Kirk is always a presence in the scenes with Khan.
Oh yeah, and vice versa.
Always, and vice versa. And that's what makes it so good. They don't need to be in the same room together because they are always there.
And that same thing is here, where because right from the beginning, D'Amour knows who Pinhead is. He recognizes who he is. This is a person or a creature that is known. So he immediately is like, "Oh fuck," and tries to run, and narrowly escapes. Gets utterly fucked up.
Why is Pinhead after him?
Because he happens to show up at a house where there's a magical tome hidden. So it's sort of happenstance.
Oh, so it's just Is it chance or is it universe putting you in the way? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that therein lies part of it, because there are those elements as well. And then there's a part where they're in New York and Pinhead kind of comes out of this portal and Harry sees him and goes, "Ah, fuck, run!" Because he knows that he's very powerful.
Listen. I don't have any problems with his reaction because, I mean...
No.
You see something like that come out of a portal. You see anyone come out of a portal, but Pinhead, come on.
There's also something I like that I didn't pick up right away because Barker, I think, is smart about how he introduces it and then kind of maximizes it.
Yeah.
Which is D'Amour is covered in tattoos, almost head to toe. Not completely, but mostly.
His face?
No, not his face. His tattooer is covered because his tattooer is like, "Yeah, I decided I wanted every alarm system. I don't care where it goes." And he basically is a wall of tattoos. But
Did I ever tell you about the weird dream I had that my tattooist accidentally tattooed me with the runes of pyromancy?
Oh no.
And I started starting fires by accident all over the place. And basically it was that he'd been using a book of old runic designs to help design my tattoo, and this is my dream I had. He had inadvertently given me pyromantic abilities, and then we were trying to figure out how to disrupt them. That whether if you tattooed over them they would go away, or if I had to have them removed. But it was literally I would look at stuff and it would burst into flame.
I guarantee that's a short story of some kind somewhere. That sounds too good to not be somebody made
I'm sure it must be something somewhere, but it was a funny dream I had because it was me and my tattooist sitting in his studio with all his monster memorabilia, being like, "Dude, where did you get these tattoos from?"
It's wild.
So he doesn't have his face, guys.
Oh, okay, right. So Harry does not have. He is not completely tatted up top to bottom.
All right.
But basically, many of these tattoos are alarm bells for some kind of supernatural a presence. It will tell you what type of ghost, whether it's a lightweight ghost or a demon or something with murderous intent or just a mischievous spirit.
Out of curiosity, does they give any allusion to what the symbols derive from, if they're runic or if they're
nothing.
I old religious symbols?
No, they just say sigils and symbols, but I think he's being smartly unspecific.
He's vague. He's keeping it smartly vague. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you can map whatever you want onto it. You could,
of course.
Take any occult symbol or representation you want. So I think too it was supposed to be a thing where there's a little of everything, because there's
different religions,
so much different
cultures.
stuff. Yeah. Even though, like I said, this book does somewhat seem to root it in a pretty Christian version of it, because when you start saying Lucifer and fallen angels, well...
Yeah, see, and the thing is, I always thought, if I was going to create a pantheon of religions on Earth, fictionally, I always wanted to make it so that there was one religion, or there was one pantheon, it's just that different people interpreted them as different beings. And that somebody always represented somebody in some other religion. You know what I mean? I know it's not always the easiest to fit them together, believe me. But God is Odin, God is Zeus, God is Jupiter.
I feel like that's what Barker did to some extent in Hellraiser too, because they always refer to it as hell. The Cenobites say hell multiple times, so they are using that word, right? Which is a specific word. They don't say, the pit or the underneath or the underverse or any other bullshit term. They're saying
take
hell.
us through the underverse.
Exactly. Sorry, I don't have that sound effect, everybody. I don't have that one.
Oh my God.
I will try to
I can't tell you how often, by the way, if anyone says underverse, that comes right out of my mouth.
Well, that's why I said it, because I figured you'd go right to it. But so they use the word hell all throughout, right? And when they go, though, it's not Lucifer. It's this thing in the sky. Is that Lucifer? They call it Leviathan. Leviathan is, I believe, a Christian. No, or is it Greek? Leviathan is something. It's a monster of some kind. So there was a mixing of things right there. And the fact that it wasn't burning, it was a bunch of MC Escher hallways, but there was no fire. There were no people being tortured, except, well, we see Frank being tortured, but it's not a traditional version of hell, even though they call it hell.
All right. I'll tell you what the Leviathan is, okay?
It's like a giant sea monster, isn't it?
Yeah, so
it's also a Final Fantasy 8 summon, so there is
noted in theology and mythology, is referenced in several books of the Hebrew Bible, including Palms, whatever, the Book of Job, the Book of Isaiah,
book what?
And oh my God, this is a great word, pseudepigraphical Book of Enoch.
Ooh.
Hey,
Leviathan. Enoch's where the Grigori show up too. I happen to see that.
There you go.
So got some overlap there.
Leviathan is often the embodiment of chaos, threatening to eat the damned when their lives are over. In the end, it is annihilated. Christian theologians identified Leviathan with the demons of the deadly sin envy. According to Ophite diagrams, the Leviathan encapsulates the space of the material world.
Well, there you go. So, in Hellraiser 2, he's a giant cube that turns into a blade. So there's that. A giant blade that turns into a cube, and that's what seals hell. I don't know why, but that's what happens. In any event, where was I going with this? Oh, so Harry's tattoos. So at first, you just get this sense that they tingle when something happens, whatever. And then there's a part where they go insane, and you realize that the downside of having a complete body alarm system is that if it goes off all at once, you are going to be immobilized for at least a few minutes.
Well, I have more of a description that makes sense with Clive Barker's interpretation.
Go.
Which is, the Leviathan can also be used as an image of the devil, endangering both God's creatures by attempting to eat them and God's creation by threatening it with the upheaval in the waters of chaos. A quote-unquote dragon, being the usual translation for the Leviathan in the Septuagint, appears in the Book of Revelations. Although the Old Testament nowhere identifies the Leviathan with the devil, the seven-headed dragon in the Book of Revelations is. By this, the battle between God and the primordial chaos monster shifts to a battle between God and the devil. Only once in the Book of Job, the Leviathan is translated as sea monster. So, yeah, the problem here that you have on top of all the weirdness is that you've got a lot of different translations. So,
yeah,
and it creates kind of a multi-layered approach to what this. This is one of my favorite things in like the Ghostbusters movies is when they're looking stuff up, and they're like, oh, this god referenced in this book about this thing, and like I love the way you kind of travel back through history trying to find reference to a thing.
Yeah.
So yes, it is very much open for interpretation. So Clive Barker can have fun with it,
which is great. That gives him the license to do it. Like nothing about this. I will say, just to be clear, I have no issues with the flexibility of this story.
I just love the fact that he's even pulling on anything. Like there is an anchor point for a lot of this.
Yeah, well, I mean that's but I think that for a lot of people is the problem. To some people, I think that this book is the Wolverine's backstory for Pinhead, and they don't want it. And I somewhat understand that if you really adore the character and you like the fact that the character has whatever background you want, more or less, because in the films, now don't get me wrong, I haven't seen every single one because they get pretty bad after 4.
I find Pinhead to be an empty suit in the movies. He looks great, but what else is there? Like they get into who he used to be when he was a man.
They do in the third one, yes. They get into who he was.
I'm not hugely impressed either. Like, I like more the idea of Pinhead having agency and wanting to do something within the world that he is now encapsulated, which is fascinating.
And you're right. And that's why this is something new, because I'm curious, what is Pinhead's goal? I don't know, because he clearly has a strategy that he is executing. And he is not, which I like, invulnerable. There are multiple points where he acknowledges, if this doesn't work, I will be dead. I mean, I don't know what death means in hell, but he is threatened with death multiple times and kills.
He'll be depowered and destroyed.
Whatever. Or, tortured probably infinitely or whatever. Because they do talk about people buried in mud pits, that the river demons, one of the reasons that the river demons have the worst job is all they have to do is to make sure that the people don't die, that they stay just buried with no faces because the birds and the fish eat their faces, but they can't completely die. So it's miserable work, even for demons, which is very funny. It's like a throwaway thing where they're talking about, the river demons. Yeah. In any event, it's really good. I don't know where it's going, which I like, but I agree. I am enjoying the fact that Pinhead has a plan. Harry, ironically, his goal is very simple. He doesn't even care about Pinhead, but Pinhead took his partner, who in this book is a very old woman who is blind, who can see the dead. And so she helps him. He has this very this affection for her. They're really the only two people in each other's lives, and they're basically partners. And so Pinhead's servant thing took her as a hostage because Pinhead wants Harry to be his witness to what he's doing, and Harry's like, "Fuck you." And so he's like, "Oh yeah," and he takes her and he says, "Come get her." And basically his plan, he tells this woman, is, "Oh, I'm going to get him to come to hell, and then after I kill you, he'll work for me because what will he have to go back to? And I'll just keep him here." And so that's all I know so far about what his plan is.
That's not going to work.
Oh no, it's not going to work. What's very funny is there's a point where he kills her, and her spirit comes out and it's floating around and inhabits somebody, and then she goes, "Oh no, wait, I'm not dead. Shit, I'm getting pulled back," and she gets ripped back out of this person's body she's possessing, and then goes back into her body because Pinhead didn't. She probably died for some amount of time, and he magically brought her back to life or whatever. They haven't explained it yet, but she was dead. Her spirit left, went and gave Harry a message and said, "Leave," and he's like, "No." And then she says, "Wait, I'm not dead." And she gets rubber banded right back into her body. So anyway, I'm only halfway through. I'm having a great time. So it's a very long review.
Games.
Yeah, fun and games. So.
Well, it is a review. It is a half-point review. The big hope now is that he can stick the landing. It's always what it is.
Yeah. And based on the reviews I've seen, none of them are complaining about his ending or his writing. They're complaining about the fact that they don't like that Pinhead has a backstory or whatever, or that he's got a goal,
Does he have a backstory, or is it just that he has a story?
No, I'm saying backstory, meaning that there's more to him than just showing up and going, "I'll drag you to hell."
Yeah, I mean, this is, and that's the thing. This is like giving Cthulhu a character arc.
Well, and I remember people when Hellraiser 3 came out, among its many problems, because don't get me wrong, it's not a particularly good movie, although it's an entertaining one. A lot of people did not like the fact that we saw his human form at all, let alone the fact that he's in half the movie where he's helping out the main character, Dax. She's not Dax in the movie, but it's Terry Farrell who plays Dax in Star Trek. But a lot of people did not like the fact that he keeps showing up, and then, he fights himself, which is not particularly good in terms of special effects, but I didn't mind it. I mean, we'd already gotten a little bit of that in Hellraiser 2. We see him when he gets depowered, he turns human again before he gets killed. So Barker had no problem doing this before. It's his character. Sorry, everybody. You don't own this stuff. The person who creates it does. So whatever. I'm having a good time with it. So,
yeah, I do like the Clive Barker still he plays with the fantastical. I was telling you, I just showed my kids the Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think that is my favorite Terry Gilliam movie.
Sure.
And I'm not saying it's his greatest movie, but there's a difference between the movies you want to watch all the time and then the movies that are.
It's the most fun of all.
It is the most fun, yes, and that's the thing, is that that is hard. You're hard pressed finding a lot of fun because Zero Theorem is like.
Well, I was going to say followed probably by Time Bandits, and a lot of his other stuff.
Yes,
isn't fun.
Actually, and that's the next one that I'm going to show them. Yeah. But what I love about the Baron Munchausen, they had a good time. They were very confused by it, and what they were confused by it is this idea that anything becomes possible in the universe of Baron Munchausen. And that's one of the things I liked, which is that in the world of Baron Munchausen, you can fly to the moon in a Zeppelin. Like, it's all utterly, like, old school fantastical. You can fall from the moon to the earth. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. And that I think I do love that movie. And that movie is very much all about the power of storytelling and what stories can make happen. I forgot that he disappears at the end. Can you believe that?
Yes, it's crazy.
That's one of the things I always forget, that he just disappears.
Yeah.
I told my wife that you could make an argument that The Adventures of Baron Munchausen is a secret movie about Gandalf his years after being on in Middle Earth, because it is fascinating the way his age fluctuates. Like, he can come back from the dead. He has died before. And Gandalf's age doesn't really fluctuate, but he doesn't move like an old man. You know what I mean? Like, Gandalf is old, but he's still riding around a horse fighting with like a staff and a sword. You know what I mean? And Gandalf often acts through others. He brings heroes in to get things done. Gandalf couldn't bring the ring to the mountain. You know what I mean? So I said to my wife, I was like, you can make a convincing argument, I think, that, and because they never put a place on the movie, it's never like there's accents, but no one ever says. They say, well, they do call them the Turks. They do call them the Turks. I was like, it could just be like a future of Middle Earth, But I always like to do that, to try to find like a weird twist on something. But either way, I love the fantastical nature of Baron Munchausen. If you haven't seen it, you should. And
oh yeah,
but I love the way that Gillian anchors it back to reality every time. So the fantastical friends look like the actors, and what you realize when you watch it a second time is that everything in the movie that you're watching pertains to what was already. It's very Kaiser Sose in that respect, right? That was already there, and when you get to the end, you're kind of sitting there going, well, did he go on that adventure?
Well, that's what Sarah Polley's character basically says is, well, it wasn't just a story, was it? And you don't get an answer, and that's when he vanishes. So
yeah.
You don't know. But I didn't realize, by the way,
Yeah.
until maybe I don't think I ever even mentioned this to you. I think 3 or 4 years ago I happened to read. This makes sense, but it never occurred to me really.
Yeah.
That Time Bandits, this movie, in Brazil are his trilogy of youth, middle age, and old age.
And death. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I mean, it makes
and
sense because they
Brazil
feel
is,
related.
Brazil
but
is middle age, right?
No, this is middle age. This is middle age. Hold on, let me make sure. I gotta look it up.
Because I would interpret it as Time Bandits is youth.
Maybe I have this one and that one backwards.
Brazil is middle age, and then
here it is. Well, okay, so Time Bandits was 81. This movie is what year is this?
I can't remember.
Shit. Oh, damn it. Hold on. Sorry. No, back button. Back. God, IMDb sucks. All right, 81, 88, and Brazil is when? Brazil is, because you might be right. I could be wrong about this. No, Brazil. Time Bandits was first. Brazil is. Oh, so you're right. Yes, Time Bandits is youth. Brazil is middle age, and then this is
because
old age.
Middle age is about the death of your fantasies.
Yep. You're right. So yeah, Time Bandits, Brazil.
So Brazil is So my wife has never seen Brazil. And last night we finished Baron Munchausen, and I was talking to her about how Munchausen is my favorite, and that I watched that movie at way too young an age, and I've seen it a million times, and she only saw it because I showed it to her. Right? Love that movie.
Yeah.
If I could find like a movie that closely connects with my sense of narrative and weirdness, Munchausen is close. There's another movie that came pretty close recently, but yeah, Munchausen is close with my weirdness. I adore that movie. In fact, there's a scene in the movie where the main character, Baron Munchausen, pulls himself out of the ocean by pulling his own ponytail, right? And he pulls himself and his horse out, and it is ridiculous and absurd. And you know what?
Great scene.
I have found it to become so endearing. That scene.
It's great.
The other thing is, it is quite possibly Oliver Reed's greatest performance as Vulcan.
I can't really argue that.
I fucking love him.
I
as
mean,
Vulcan.
every that movie has some magnificent performances from just about everybody that's in it.
Yeah.
It's one of those- it's one of those
even
movies.
Sting is in it. Even Sting has a cameo.
Yeah. There's, I mean, I know that, for example, what's his face? Robin Williams wasn't even supposed to be in it. Wasn't paid. They basically got desperate, and they just went to him and said, "Would you mind doing this?" He said, "Oh, sure." And just
Yeah, and
does
it could. And the funny thing is, it could have been John Cleese. John Cleese could have done it too.
Sure, of course.
It would have been different, but he could have done it. I
Yeah,
could
he
see
could've,
him as
yeah.
the king of the moon. But either way, yes. But what like I said, it's the way that he can anchor the fantastical to the reality, and it makes it more accessible. And that's like something that Clive Barker does, and it's something that a lot of storytellers can do, and you don't realize it's that connection. So it's like, with Brazil is actually kind of funny because you connect with the fact that he daydreams, but you also connect with how much his life is, it's not an apocalyptic future. It's this bureaucratic hell gone awry. You know what I mean? Where it's just, overpopulated and buildings and yet there is this air of the fantastical, like, when, I think the moment for me, the movie where, I get the sense that the fantasy is beginning to bleed into the reality is when Robert De Niro disappears in the cloud of paper. Like, he literally vanishes in paperwork.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, the thing is, I haven't seen this movie in a while. Is there ever anything else fantastical after that which bleeds into the world? Or has Robert De Niro always been a fiction of Lowry's mind?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Was he...
Because no one else sees him.
Boy, that's a really good question. Because I don't know that there's ever is there anybody else like Lowry? I don't think so, that there's anybody else that's like that. So, well, let's see. Let's see if there's an official, if there's, kind of consensus on that. Let's take a quick look. Because I think, if you're asking me, he doesn't exist. He's a manifestation of Sam going crazy. Or, being, falling apart under this thing. But... let's see. Oh, that's sorry. Tuttle. You mean Tuttle? Lowry is Sam's name. I'm mixing it up. Sorry, that's my fault.
Yeah, other people have
Freelance
the opinion
heating
too.
engineer.
Yeah, the character of
I'm
Harry
looking.
Tuttle doesn't actually exist within the confines of the film. It is a manifestation of Sam Lowry's alternative identity as a terrorist.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you're right, because there is nothing else like him.
Yeah, and it makes sense, because if he's not real, then the death of Harry Tuttle is basically his fantasies being... It is a direct
Destroyed.
metaphor for his fantasies being destroyed by the crushing weight of paperwork.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's the thing that I want to show my wife that movie because it's a brilliant movie. But the ending, I haven't seen the ending in a while.
Oh, it's
no, and I remember it very well because it hits you hard.
Yeah, it's not.
But the
great.
thing about that movie is that I always found that there was hope, because Lowry does, though they have his body, they never get his mind. You know what I mean? Like, there's a...
Yeah.
I was talking to my wife earlier. I can't remember. Oh, no. I was talking to you about experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this idea that if you believe something to be true, then does it matter that it is not? If you it matters to other people, but if you believe that something is real.
Well, okay. So now you get into something interesting about this movie in particular. So what you just said is vital, that in terms of this movie, because you said, is it obviously to other people it's not real, but to you it is, and right in this movie, based on what I believe is real and what isn't, and where that line is, it is a happy ending, because Sam's mother doesn't care about him, because she's now been remade to look like the woman that he was in love with, which is disgusting.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's the woman the real woman that he was in love with is dead, He's told she's dead. We have no evidence to the contrary, and it makes sense. She's dead. So Sam has no one who cares about him, and nobody that, let's be honest, he cares about at this point because his mother is all but gone from his life. So for him, sealed inside his mind, he's with the woman he loves, and they're happy. So what does it matter?
That's what I mean. Like,
yes.
so like, I wonder if seeing it again, I will have a reinterpretation of that idea that, though you can have my body, you cannot have my mind. And that there was a victory in that.
The way that you could make it into a sadder ending, depending on how you would look at it, is if the camera panned up and you saw that Jill was alive, looking in on the torture chamber and realized she couldn't get him out. Then it's a bummer. Because but you don't see that. All you see is him.
He never finds any level of consciousness.
No, they lobotomized him. No, he's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
They lobotomized him, so he is now permanently like that. There is no fixing that. He is like that. But in his mind, he's happy. So who cares?
Yeah. And I think Brazil may be one of is the best movie that Terry Gilliam has made. It's just so heavy.
It is the most directly executed of his worldview, I think.
Yeah.
But
it's just so heavy.
It's not fun.
No.
Whereas Time Bandits and Munchausen are fun. They also have their elements of commentary. There are also things in there that you can see if you're looking for them. But they don't end in a way that just crushes almost all of your... Again, you could look at it as lobotomy is actually a happy ending, but most people will not look at it that way. Most people will say that's sad, that this person was destroyed, which
he is, yeah.
Well, but back to your point, this is the debate. This is the interesting thing that you have to philosophize with yourself. To the exterior world, he's destroyed because he can't respond. In his mind, he's in heaven. Was he destroyed? Yeah. He's only destroyed if there were people who cared about him. But as far as we know, nobody does. His mother doesn't care about him anymore, and the woman he loved is dead. If there's no one to care about you, in the end, only your own happiness will then matter. And he's got that. So was he actually destroyed? Not to himself. To himself, he got out. He escaped. The fact that escape isn't real doesn't matter because it's irrelevant to him and he's not relevant to anybody else. So I would agree with you. If I'm him, I'm happy. Well, he is. As the viewer, we're not because we know what was done to him. So because we as the viewers care about the character as for the movie's sake, it is a downer ending. The character is in seventh heaven and doesn't care. The character got the happy ending in every practical way that matters to the character. So the question becomes, go ahead.
I found something that connected you further to you were saying about the trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
So the movies, Time Bandits, Munchausen, and Brazil, all three movies are about escape from an awkward, ordered society seen through the eyes of a child, a man in his 30s, and an elderly man. So that's the trilogy. It's basically the three different point of views of what an ordered society looks like, and the escape therefrom.
Sure. Great movies. They're wonderful films. But you're right. You really... Brazil is a tough film because it requires you, if you want to see it as a happy film, you have to internalize Sam's reality.
And they cut his ending. I mean, I know there's that one cut that just doesn't have that.
Well, they originally put out the theatrical one, and then eventually he did something unusual, which is take out a full-page ad yelling at the producer of the studio saying, "When will you release my movie?" And it worked, which is a rarity. So now the official version is his version, and then there's what they call the studio version, which is the happy ending, or Love Conquers All. So that's what that version is called. And that's, in fact, I believe the end of that movie is what they use some of, or no, I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up. No, but I'm just mixing up other movies.
No, they use that for, I know you're talking about, they use the footage from The Shining.
The Shining for Blade Runner, that's what I'm mixing up. I'm mixing the two things together. For that version of Love Conquers All, because Blade Runner had one too. That's why I'm conflating them, because there's two movies that the ending should not have been what it was, and studio execs thought this is all that people would tolerate.
We want a happy ending, guys.
Yeah. You gotta make it where they get, he gets the girl. Okay, got it. Sure. But yes, Brazil is a tough one because you have to do some work to see it as a happy ending. And some people never will be able to.
You've got to think about it.
And even And even if you do see that Sam is being happy, it still leaves a world that is horrifically torturous and oppressive.
It is a horrible world. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, actually, so here's to talk about how. Well, I guess to stay in the realm of kind of like cinema and literature, because we're kind of hovering between movies and books.
Sure.
So I have not seen Dune 2, right? But I have read the spoilers and the reviews. It's not really a fucking spoiler because, I mean, fucking
no, it's the book.
Forever. Yeah. But I was speaking to a friend of mine who's watched the movie like 3 times. He fucking loves it. And after reading all these things and talking to him, it has come to my attention that they have changed the character of Chani quite a bit. So much so that towards the end of the Dune 2, it is led people to believe that Chani may lead a revolt against Muad'Dib. Have you read this?
Yeah, I mean, that's more or less because she leaves when he basically embraces power. Doesn't she leave?
Yeah,
I think she
and the
leaves
thing
on.
is, but she doesn't in the books. And I think this is the thing that bugs me, is that considering that, because he wants to do Dune Messiah, right?
That's what he said, yeah.
Yeah. But considering that Dune Messiah is Muad'Dib basically trying to balance being what he is, and then when his wife dies...
Fail.
Yeah. Was that?
Fail. He fails. Failure.
Yeah. Yeah. When his wife dies, Muad'Dib gives up. He gives it all up because he realizes that she was the most important thing to him. He's blinded, and he uses the
I'm
Fremen...
walking into the desert. Fuck you!
Yeah, he uses the Fremen rule to basically allow himself to die, which is to walk into the desert blindly. Not that he can't... The joke of it is that he still can't see. He's fucking Daredevil at that point, right? He's got the inner eye, whatever it is, you know. But it's just weird to me because in the books, Chani never had any doubt that Paul loved her, and Paul was very sure to explain to her that he was marrying the emperor's daughter as a political move, but that he would have nothing to do with her. And the joke of it was that he even at one point says to me, he's like, my father was never married to my mother because she was a Bene Gesserit, essentially plant. You know what I mean? She was always supposed to be like a concubine, but he loved her and they had me. So, you know, it's kind of this interesting dynamic where he's like, I have to marry her politically, but Chani always understands that Paul loves her. And it is, you know, so I've been told that it is handled very well, but they have changed the character. And I guess a lot of people are like, well, you know, she was just a blind believer in the books. And I'm like, she wasn't just a blind believer. But she did love him. Do you know what I mean? And that can make you a little blind. And then people also said, you know, well, now she's a better fighter than him or something like that. And I was like, yeah, but I never got the sense, without the weirding way, I never got the sense that Paul was better than Chani. Chani had lived this life forever, right? And if anything, remember, she's the one that stops him when he's going to leave in the book when they first find the Fremen, right? She's the one. He basically catches up with her, or she catches up with him. Sorry, and but yeah, so it's just a strange, like, we're starting to play into that area where is it an adaptation, or is it like now becoming inspired by? Do you know what I mean? Because I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, you know what? This is not from the book. Like, I would love to. I've been trying to see if I could find the director's explanation for why he changed the character. One person interpreted it as the idea that she's supposed to become the you know, the conscience of truth or whatnot, like, you know, that she realizes that, you know, he's not the anointed one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't know, I gotta reread Dune, because Muad'Dib never drank his own Kool-Aid. Like, he did not. He had the power, but he never thought that he was. He never thought that he was God. Do you know what I mean? And she was always the thing to help bring him back down to earth. But he also realized that he was in over his head, and that's one of the things I like about that character, about Muad'Dib, is that, like, yes, there's a lot of pride. Yes, there's a lot of nobility. Yes, he's trying to upset the universe as they know it. But he always felt worried to me. He was always not sure that it was going to work. Even when he drank the water of life, Paul still wasn't sure. And like to some degree, when he goes and he fights Fade at the end, I've never been entirely sure that he thought he was going to win.
Well, to answer your question about why the change was made, and of course, this is one of those things where there's certain wording in here that maybe you'll key on in just like I did, where I'm like, in an interview with Screen Rant, Dennis Villeneuve, DV, explained that he had attempted to honor Frank Herbert's original intentions for Doom with his changes for Chani's character. DV said that Herbert, quote, felt that people were talking about Paul as a hero, and for him, he was an anti-hero, end quote. Going on to assert that Herbert's intention was for Doom to serve as, quote, a warning about a messianic figure, end quote. By having Chani reject Paul's claim to be a prophesized leader of the Fremen, DV has given voice to this core tenet of the story, making it clear that Paul has been corrupted by a Bene Gesserit lie by the story's end. So, what's happening here is an interpretation.
That is definitely not my interpretation at all.
Well, okay.
Because, no, get me wrong. It is a cautionary tale, right? It is. Because the cautionary tale to me was always the fact that you can try to change everything, but it will change you, and it may destroy you. And in Paul's case, he loses everything. Or he loses the thing that matters to him. Because at the end of Dune Messiah, he's still in charge. He could stay in charge. Even blind, he has the power to see, essentially. But she's gone. And now that Chani's gone, that's it. Like, he's so destroyed that he doesn't even stay for his children. You know what I mean? Like, Paul is done. And that's that. And the thing is, like, I guess this is a different interpretation, but when I read Paul Atreides needs to be Muad'Dib to do what he needs to do, but I don't think he ever buys it completely. And I think that's the thing. Somebody said that you get that more from the original Dune movie because they did the whole thought narration really well. Where like you always got the fact that Paul was not sure. You know what I mean? Like that one scene where they say his name and he realizes his name is a killing word with their version of the weirding device.
My name has become a killing word.
He says my name is a killing word, and it bothers him. So that's the thing is like I think in the books, and I think even in I guess we'll call it what's his name's Lynch's interpretation, right? Because that's what it is. Paul is using the prophecy, and he's almost scared of it, because that's the other part of it too, is when you find yourself in a prophecy, right? Think about what's frightening about that is that there is a certain level of free will that you feel that you've lost. Like that's another aspect of this, where it's like, is Paul using the Fremen and using the fact that they believe, you know what? You could make that interpretation. This is the white savior thing, right? When someone comes in, there's an interpretation, and they say, oh, yeah, you know what? That's right. And I'm going to use you guys now to get what I want. That is a very modern interpretation. But I always felt that in the book, I guess my vision of it was that Paul was afraid of the prophecy, afraid of what was happening. There's the thing. He puts off drinking the water of life, right? He doesn't do it because he wants more power. In the books, and even in the first movie, he does it because he doesn't know what to do. And he realizes that this may be the only next step, but you can see there's a trepidation in him. He's afraid of it. It could kill him, or it could change him, and he doesn't know it's worse. So yeah, I'm not 100%. I've been putting off seeing these, and I think now I'm going to have to create some space in my head between Dune the books, because you know how you said, oh, this is a really faithful. You said it was like a soulless, faithful adaptation, right?
Yes.
Well, now it's an interpretation. Now this is a totally different beast to me, and I kind of have to make some room in my head where I'm like, okay, I was like, let's push the book over here and not let these two mix, because I don't need, Villanova's interpretation to kind of mix up what my storyline is. And at the same time, I'm kind of annoyed because on some degree I would have preferred an adaptation over an interpretation, or maybe I just don't agree with his interpretation. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, I already basically talked about the fact that let's start with this. I've heard people say, and I've seen people write that trying to adapt this is impossible in any way that's going to satisfy everybody. And I agree, because you would need a, 12-hour series to do it with no limits on what you could do with it. They've tried it a couple of times, and there's always been flaws. There's always been problems. In the sci-fi series, I think a lot of it was the budget, and to some degree, some of the people they chose, and some of the changes they made.
Also, the other problem is, and I hate to be mean about this, but this is a very thought-provoking... Dune the books has a lot going on. Mm-hmm. It is not a boom action book. It is not a simple story. There's a lot going on. There's politics. There's religious belief. There's an intersection there in between. I mean, there is so much going on. Frank Herbert was not a light author.
Correct.
You read The White Plague, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. White Plague. Super heavy book. Tons of commentary. Not a book for the faint of heart. And I think the problem is when you try to make extremely intelligent, thought-provoking science fiction into mass market, digestible dribble, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, there's plenty of people who can't stand Lynch's Dune. And I think Lynch's Dune comes close to the ideas of the book. I know it's not perfect. I know that Lynch changed a lot.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I'm sure these movies will be great. I just don't agree with Villanova's interpretation. The same way that Nolan's Batman is a great Batman, but that's not my Batman. My Batman is the detective ninja. This is just the ninja.
And this is where I was going, is there is going to be no adaptation of this book that's going to be what the people who read it and love it want it to be. It just isn't. It requires a series that is unpalatable for most viewers, which puts a huge damper on what financial backing it's going to get. And so what you're going to get is a movie that's going to have to actionize it, or trim enough off that you're going to start to either make significant changes to it or not cover enough, and it's going to become, you remember when the Lord of the Rings movies came out, the people who were incensed that Tom Bombadil was missing from the theatrical cuts, as if that character was absolutely necessary for anything. Now, to those people who love and read those books every year or whatever, I'm sure they believe that character is intrinsic.
And he's like some kind of weird, benign super being in those books, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know enough because I don't care. I was never a fan of the books. So I just use the theatrical things. That's my version of it. So that's what I'm saying is, to me, it's great because I don't care about the books. I don't care. So this version of Dune, for people who don't love the books, is probably spectacular. And many of those same people, and this is not meant to be disrespectful or insulting. I swear, I'm not saying this to be, you're dumb. But a mainstream viewer who found Lynch's version too weird can watch this and go, oh, this is a really good, this is what this was supposed to be, not that weird wacko version with a disgusting guy floating. I get it. This makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why, and it is beautifully designed. I mean, I said, my first one, this thing is immaculately crafted
I'm
top
sure
to bottom.
that it is, listen, I love Blade Runner 2049. And you know what? Yeah. Blade Runner 2049, I will say this for Villeneuve. He destroyed the director's cut of Blade Runner, where you were left wondering whether or not he was a replicant.
Right.
Villeneuve destroyed that. He's not a replicant. He's human, and her replicant body and him were able to have kids together, right? Yeah. But in a swift moment, he completely destroys part of what gave the first Blade Runner movie it's mystique. The idea that Deckard might himself be a replicant and not know it and be hunting other replicants, right?
Have you ever taken that test yourself?
Yeah,
No
so
answer.
Villanova has a history of reinterpreting movies and still reinterpreting the storyline to make his own storylines and still making very good movies.
And
despite the fact that he broke Blade Runner, I still love Blade Runner 2049.
And this is something in terms of Dune. Now, I have 3 copies of Dune. I have a leather-bound one, a beautifully illustrated one from Folio edition, and then just a regular hardcover, regular in quotes. And then I have Dune Messiah in hardcover. I love those books. Okay?
Yeah.
But I don't really care about them. Meaning, when you change them, I'm not bothered. Because I don't believe that a good adaptation of this thing can be made
possible.
with current movie-making studios in existence the way they are. Now, if somehow an auteur renaissance comes about where funding suddenly flows to people who want to make passion projects and are given no restrictions, then maybe. If, like, Tim Cook from Apple said, I'm just going to take $10 billion of Apple's money because we have trillions, and I want somebody to make Dune in a faithful way to the book, no limits. Make it. Get whoever you need. Okay, fine. $1 billion. Apple could spare off $1 billion the way I take a dollar bill and drop it in the street.
Let's
$1 billion
see.
bucks.
How much did the Rings of Power cost?
Oh, jeez. Well, that's licensing. That's all the rest of that.
No, but I think that cost $1 billion.
Yeah, but that's also for 5 seasons of
the
that
Rings
crap.
of Power cost $500 million.
Yeah, okay. I'm talking about 2 books, not multiple series.
But less than half of viewers finished it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so whatever the number is, fine, 10 billion. Who cares? Whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, he goes to somebody. Tim Cook says, "I will give Apple's movie-making resources unlimited to whoever to make it." Then I would say, "Okay, now we got a shot."
I want to find this thing that Villanova read. I would love to know what Frank Herbert said.
Hold on, I didn't play the video, but I've got a link to it if you want it. It was on Screen Rant.
Does he cite what it was that he read?
Well, I'm not going to watch the video because we're recording, so I don't know. But I will give you a link that you can watch at your leisure, and you can report back when you have. Here it is. Here you go. You can even watch it in the background if you want. I don't care. But there it is. There's the interview where he talks, where this quote or these quotes come from. So I don't know what exactly he says or what he cites, if anything. Maybe he doesn't.
Interesting. Screen Rant has an article that's actually titled "When in Dune 2, the movie officially switches protagonists."
Sure.
And people are sitting there going, "Does Paul really love Chani?" I'm like, "Oh man, you're really messing with the fabric of
But as I said,
yeah, man, and a lot of people, Dune 2 radically changes Chani, but they're saying it's for the better, and it's I guess that's the thing. It's an interpretation.
Okay, well,
but
okay,
for me,
but very clearly, let's say for the better in the context of the film.
Maybe, yeah, because they also cut out the fact. I'm pretty sure they cut out the fact that they have a kid.
I believe you're right.
That's one of the things that really annoys me. Yeah.
These people who are saying for the better, did they like the books? Or did they not?
I don't know.
If they didn't...
Did they even read them?
Well, I'll give them the credit. Maybe they read them and didn't think they were that good. Maybe they didn't like the way Chani's character worked. Okay, then you would think this is better.
People always leave out the fact that Chani and Paul had a kid and the Harkonnens killed the kid. And that is part of the reason that she hates them as well.
But that's
is that
all
Chani has as much reason to want to destroy the Harkonnen, and the Fremen have as much reason to destroy the Harkonnen as Paul. That is always the thing that was in the books, is that they put Rabban in charge, and Rabban was basically a bastard and wanted to slaughter everybody.
Yeah. So
yeah,
all of this, context and the background. When people say these things, if you don't know how they're coming to the movie, you don't really know what their comment means. This could be because this is why I was very clear about my Lord of the Rings stuff, where I'm like, I don't care about the books. I've never made it through even the first one. I didn't make it through the first 10% of the first one because I was bored to death. Now, right there, somebody who loves the books and thinks they're expertly written, you can take my opinion and you can drop kick it into the sun, because my opinion means nothing to you. I don't view the source material with the adoration you do. That is not a commentary on your adoration and whether it's good or bad. It's simply you now have the context of why I don't give a fuck about Tom Bombadil. You do? Then you are right to be angry. Or, I don't know, angry, whatever. You are right to not like the fact that Tom's missing.
And I'm not saying that they're going to they could still be great movies. I'm just saying that it's an interpret.
Yeah,
it's
so
the Batman thing. I love the Batman movie, Nolan's Batman movies, but they are not my Batman. It's that simple.
At some point, I will watch Dune 2. I'm not going to a theater. I'm not paying for it because I don't care enough.
No, you
but
know,
I will watch it at some point.
There hasn't been a movie in the last decade that I have sat there and thought, I desperately want to go see this in the theater.
But even outside of that,
lately the sound is terrible.
Well, there is that.
They boost the sound through the fucking roof. The music is so loud I can't hear what anybody the fuck is saying. Like, I have this problem at home, and at home I'm constantly pushing the volume up and down because people are murmuring, and then there's a fucking gunshot and it blows the speakers out.
Yes.
You know?
But outside of all that, even forgetting the theater part, I won't even do a digital rental of it because I don't think his approach has changed from the first one. And it looked very nice, but I felt nothing. And there was no artistry to it that felt like it was personal. David Lynch's version is superior to me because I know David Lynch made it. And it's weird and gross and beautiful. And that's why I like it. So,
it's a perfect collision, isn't it? Lynch and Herbert.
It's one of these things that should not have ever happened, and that's why I'm glad it happened.
Like, David Lynch could do The White Plague, and it'd be a fucked up movie.
Oh yeah. But I mean, it's just a thing that can't exist again. And that's why I think it's so great. I also just enjoy it. So I'll watch Dune 2 at some point. And in the context of, because like I said, I'm in this middle ground where I'm very familiar with Dune and Dune Messiah. I don't think I read any past those. I don't think I ever read the third book or anything. I don't remember it if I did. So I only know the 2 books. And I'm not going to read the other ones because I don't care. Because I really like Dune and Dune Messiah.
Here's an interesting little piece of information that I had not read.
Yeah.
When Paul wakes up from drinking the water of life, Chani slaps him and leaves. Because she's annoyed that he risked his life by drinking the water of life and choosing to be the Messiah rather than being with her.
Well, that makes sense. If that's what the change is, that she now thinks the Bene Gesserit are liars and that this is a scam, then of course that's what I'm saying is, in this movie, these behaviors may make sense. So if you're going to go in and carry the book with you... Oh, no, it makes sense.
It's just my thing is looking at it. This is kind of like the trajectory of something, right? So you change the trajectory of something very minutely from the base kind of ejection, right? But then the thing is, the longer it goes, the further that kind of new trajectory takes something in a different direction. And I sit there and say, well, if you changed it this much... how are you going to do Dune Messiah and not have it be radically different? That's the thing I'm talking about.
I don't know.
When will that just become, based on, that's the thing that annoys me, because I actually think Dune Messiah is a great, great book, and I'd like to see it made as a movie.
I don't know that there isn't a way to still do it with this altered trajectory. I'm not saying it's possible.
Oh, who knows? Yeah.
But good writers can do a lot of things, and maybe there is some interesting.
Yes, they can.
Maybe there's an interesting angle that DV has figured out for this that he wants to use in Messiah. Well, that will be surprising and interesting.
He is not a dumb man, and he's a great director. By all, I just don't agree with the interpretation.
Yeah. Well, we don't know where it's going to end up. So right now I'm on the fence, and like I said,
we'll see. We'll see if they let him make it.
I know that parts of the book are missing. Therefore, I can't look at it as a faithful adaptation. Period. That doesn't make it bad. It means I'm just looking at it differently. And I'm like, okay, I don't care. The same way that, I'm not going to argue that Lynch adapted it either.
No, not Jesus. At all. Yeah. Listen, and no book can be adapted unless you make it like a whole fucking miniseries.
Well,
and then you might get close. But also the power of books is that a lot of it is in your head.
There's that. And there's also, if the resolution arrives at the same location that the book did, then the missing parts don't matter. That's what actually matters, is where do you end up? Yeah. Is it the same place that, as far as we know, the author's intention was? Now, if it is, okay, I often go back to
Muad'Dib in Arabic means one who educates.
Hey, there you go. Well, yeah.
Interesting.
So So I'm withholding my judgment on it. I don't, the changes might matter. They might not. I don't know. I really don't. But that's what I mean about, it's when some of these people do these things. I mean, as far as I'm aware, DV is an actual lover of the books and has read them many times from what I understand and has a true love of the books. So maybe he has a plan. And maybe, to be fair, some of what he's cutting and changing is because he knows that there isn't the money and the support to do what he would need to do. So his goal may honestly, truly, sincerely be, Lynch didn't get it right. I'm going to try to get it more right, even if I can't get it 100% right. And that's fine. I'm okay with that.
And there's there's always the miniseries that tried as well.
That's what I'm saying. There's been a lot of shots taken at the bullseye. Nobody's
But here you
hit.
go. But here's a question for you. Of the three actors who have portrayed Duke, so Paul's father, which of those did you enjoy the most?
Oh, well, I mean, I like Jürgen Prochnow as an actor immensely. I think he was great.
Yes. It's weird. I really liked William Hurt. I love William Hurt, and I thought that he did a really good version of it. But I almost wish I had William Hurt, but directed by Lynch.
I'll tell you what was missing for both William Hurt and what's the
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac. Yeah. Neither of them felt like they had the warmth that Prochnow did, with the combination of weight of nobility. He nailed it really well in a couple of scenes, especially the one where they're outside looking at the ocean, where he and Paul are talking. There's something in that exchange that nobody else has gotten. And
also, Prochnow brings a sense of fatalism to it as well.
That's what I'm saying. Is there's something in his performance that is sad but accepting, like resigned but still caring.
Yeah, that's why he was so good in the was it The Seventh Sign?
Oh yeah.
Where he's basically playing Jesus, and it's like, you nailed it. You have that fatalism about you.
Right. That's what I mean. Oh. That's so it's not just because it's Lynch's version. I think Oscar Isaac was very good. I think William Hurt was very good.
I really liked William Hurt.
They were both good.
Liked it. There was just something.
Yeah. There was something that was slightly better. Neither of those other two were bad. Neither. And everybody did a different version of it, which I actually think is good. That's what you want. You don't want anybody copying. I just think Prochnow came across with the warmth and the warmth that is slightly undercut by sadness. It's there. And you hear it very, very in his discussions with, especially in that outside scene with Paul, where he's like, a person needs new experience. And like the way he's saying things, it's also line delivery. It's also I'm not saying that Prochnow's a better actor than the other two, but in that role, I feel like he had the best performance.
You are entitled to your opinion.
Yeah. And
that's the beauty
people may disagree. Whereas I would say that Timothée Chalamet is probably actually a better Muad'Dib because Kyle MacLachlan never looked young. I mean, even though he looked young, he didn't look that young. So you never bought that there were years that went by. I mean, it was ridiculous.
No, but honestly, the problem is Timothée Chalamet looks so young. I never buy him as being older.
Well, this is a problem. These are problems that they're not going to solve anyway.
Yeah, and the thing is, what's funny here is they could have used two actors. They could have got a young Paul for the first movie.
They should have.
And then just time shifted it with an older actor.
But they couldn't do that.
That's what Frank Herbert did in the book.
Well, no, but they couldn't do that because you can't sell a movie on Timothée Chalamet if he's not in the first one.
I know. You need the star power.
That's what I mean about unlimited options.
I know the rules of reality step in on your fiction. Yes.
So we have to have some fairness to these people.
Yeah.
Well,
what have you got for me?
First, let me credit Rojan from over at Project Archivist, who sent me a message saying you must watch this movie immediately. And the movie that he was referring to is a 1966 film called The Wild World of Batwoman. Now, I had my skepticism going into this film, to be honest.
What
because
the hell?
Okay, so this is a ripoff because Batmania was at its height, and so a ripoff movie was made for nothing. I don't even know what the person's name is. I mean,
what country is this? U.S.?
No, it's U.S. It's a U.S. guy.
Okay.
Jerry Warren is the guy's
I was so
name.
hoping this was Italian.
No, you don't. Not in this case, because this is I'm looking at. It's purely American, top to bottom.
Okay.
Made in California. The women in the movie are mostly strippers. This is total package. So this Jerry Warren made lots of cult and low budget films, such as Teenage Zombies, Terror of the Blood Hunters, Man Beast. And so he came up with the idea of this because Batman got big and he decided to make a low budget movie that capitalized on it. And the result is it's trash, but not insulting. It's actually highly entertaining because it is so misguided and dumb. And it's only an hour long. It's an hour and 6 minutes.
God, okay.
It's basically somebody took the Adam West Batman concept and melded it with Scooby-Doo. Sort of. So the movie starts out and we immediately get this opening, which I absolutely believe was intended, and it did actually manage to fight off a lawsuit. There was a lawsuit by, I think, Warner Brothers, it must have been, about this being a Batman ripoff, and they were beaten back. This Jerry Warren was awarded he could keep the movie and he was able to distribute it. But we get this opening, and I'm going to play it, where we see a young woman being taken into the order. This is Batman Incorporated, way before Grant Morrison did it. So Batwoman Incorporated is inducting a new member, and we get this opening dialogue.
Here's your wrist radio. Wear it at all times.
If you want to talk, push the button.
Button?
Not yet.
In a few minutes, you'll be in direct communication with the Batwoman herself.
Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Proceed.
Under Article 21, Paragraph 2, we accept your allegiance as a Batgirl. You will obey all rules and obey all orders handed through channels. Now drink this.
Do I have to?
It's part of the ritual.
Hey, it's good. It doesn't taste anything like I figured.
Now that you're one of us, I can tell. We're vampires, all right, but only in a synthetic sense. Drinking the real stuff went out with Count Dracula.
So what's this? A real groove.
Honey, mint cherry, and strawberry yogurt.
Wow!
I left a little bit of music because it made me think of Batman and Robin with the music.
Did they use that to be like, no, it's not that Batman. These are... Yeah, okay.
I think so, because they never mention it again. It never comes up again in the entire film.
It's a lawsuit cover.
That's something so they could say, oh, no, they're supposed to be real bat people. It's the only reason it makes any sense, because it never comes up again. So we immediately cut, and multiple points in this movie, you just cut to go-go girls dancing to surf rock music, which is great because I like surf rock music, so I'm okay with that. So there's just multiple points where it's just, busty women in, two-piece bikinis dancing and a band playing and whatever on the beach and all over the place. So this is a pure, no-budget, drugged-out stripper movie. That's all it is. But anyway, so it goes on, because there's no real way to even describe something like this. So then we immediately cut to a alley where a man is being held up by two thugs, and they try to take his wallet, and he resists for some reason, and they shoot him. And the guy who shoots him seems surprised himself that he shot him. So I thought he was going to be under hypnosis or something, but no, he just, I guess, can't act. So they grab his wallet and they run off. And I call this one little tiny clip is just because this is what I mean about Batwoman Incorporated, because Batgirl 14 radios in that there's been a crime.
Batgirl 14 to Batwoman. 14 to Batwoman. Witness to hold up, return to murder. 2 men, I have descriptions. Police should be notified. South Alley, behind the Star Club.
So they do nothing. They just call in crimes. They're basically a citizen patrol. as far as we can tell, at least at this point, they watch this crime happen. They do nothing. There's 2 of them. In theory, they should be able to do something. But I guess in this world, at least at this part of the movie, all they really do is observe, report back to Batwoman, and then Batwoman, who when you see her. So what I read was there was no costume designer. There was no costumes. This woman came up with her own costume, which essentially and I'm not trying to be ageist because it's certainly not like I'm young, but I believe she's probably in her late 40s, early 50s. And she's wearing what looks like a masquerade mask, some kind of, I don't know.
She's got big white poofy hair, or like big white hair, so like it's poofed out, teased, and then she just drew the bat symbol on her chest.
Exactly, yes. So she just looks like a woman who threw together an outfit, and, whatever. So, but we haven't seen her yet at this point. So they call in this thing, and then we cut to the inside of the nightclub, and for a while we're just watching people dance.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't look like she fights crime. No.
No, she doesn't look like she fights much of anything except for overusing makeup. I don't know. In any event, we're in the club, and we're watching all these people dance, and then a guy who I describe as Greasy Joe Pesci, and when he talks, you'll hear him in a little bit, but he looks like and sounds like an early Joe Pesci. And he basically drugs one of the girls there, and it's because he and his goon friend, who I'm just going to call goon friend, I don't remember what his name is. I think it's in my notes somewhere. But anyway, Greasy Pesci and goon friend, Greasy Pesci's actual character name is Tyga, not Tiger, Tyga, Tiga. So Tyga and the goon drug the go-go girl, and then basically they get her in a car and they're driving. And they say, hey, we know you're a Batgirl. He's got the whole accent and everything. So he's like, so we know you're a Batgirl. And then there's parts where they're like, oh, we're going to take you to this beach house that we got. And we're going to party over there. And so she's like, oh, yeah. And she's kind of leaning over with her wristcom communicator thing, thinking that she's secretly transmitting it back to them. And then they reveal that they actually know she's got a communicator. And that's one of the reasons they grabbed her. So they get back to, so Batwoman hears what she's reporting back. Right? And that's when we see her in her, I described it as housewife in lightweight sex party garb. That was my note. And then as this is happening, we see somebody who I describe as a spirit Halloween shadow lurking around Batwoman's lair. So she has a base, which is really just a house. And we see this guy, and he's kind of just skulking around, but we don't really know what he is yet. But again, it's just a guy in black clothing with a cape and a face mask over and a hat, a fedora, but all in black. So he looks like, discount Shadow. And so,
yeah.
I mean, you could, if you scrub through the video, the whole thing's on YouTube. I'm going to link to the YouTube video. The whole thing's on there. If you see, you'll see him, and it's ridiculous. You'll hear him as well soon. But anyway, they bring the girl back to a lab where there is a mad scientist and a person who looks like a Renfield type. I think his name is Heathcliff, but he's kind of an Igor. I swear I thought he was Beau Bridges. I looked to make sure this wasn't an early Beau Bridges role because the guy looks just like him, at least in this incarnation. He's just kind of gibbering and bouncing around in kind of like a monkey kind of position. And then we have the scientist who is doing some kind of weird accent that you're going to hear. And they bring the girl to him, and then he explains who he is and where she is.
Just relax, my dear. Nobody's going to hurt you. I'll see to that.
She's a wildcat. I like to belt her one.
Come on, Bruno, lay off her. She's a good kid. A real cutie pie.
Of course she is. I must apologize to you, my dear, for the circumstances in which you find yourself. But certain things become necessary at times, and this just happens to be one of them. But you have my promise that I will make your stay here just as comfortable as possible. No, back, Heathcliff. Hey! He is just curious. Perhaps you're somewhat of a bit curious yourself about this place, hmm?
I think it's only reasonable that the little doll is given our best courtesy with a proper introduction. Little doll, I'm known as Tiger. I'd like you to meet Bruno. And this here's Professor Neon. He's a scientist.
A great scientist?
Yeah, Neon. He's a great scientist.
I have perfected some of the greatest scientific discoveries of the 20th century, of any century. I have no doubt that the name of G. Octavius Neon will go down in history as one of the absolute giants of civilized science.
So now we have our cast of characters, which is Tyga, Bruno, and G. Octavius Neon, and then the Renfield guy is Heathcliff. And they've got this girl in a cage.
That is a hell of an accent.
It's so weird. I don't know.
Like at first it was vaguely like Asian stereotype. Then it got like kind of Eastern European.
Yeah, I don't
like. You know what? Oh man, I'd almost go Mongolian.
Maybe. I mean, I don't. The actor. Let me see if what the actor's name is. I didn't really look up the background. G.J. Mitchell is the actor, and his bio says, although best remembered today for his appearances in notoriously awful Jerry Warren films, George Mitchell Andre enjoyed a 40-year career as a distinguished veteran of stage, radio. So I guess he was slumming here, because from what this reads is he was known as somebody who was actually good in stage production. So I don't know. But in any event, yeah, whatever that accent is, that's what he's doing.
You know what? The accent's consistent.
It's consistently bad, yes. So,
but the point is that
you're right. He maintains
it's bad,
it. No, you're correct.
But
it's
it's not like he comes in and out of it. He holds it.
You're absolutely correct about that. He does. So we get our introductions to everybody, and then shortly after this, we find out that these people work for the Shoddy Shadow, which wasn't really clear up to this point, but he basically...
Oh my God, that is such a great name, too, the Shoddy Shadow.
Yeah, his actual name in the movie, his villain name is Rat Fink, which, again, this is 1966, so of course it is. But I'm going to call him Shoddy Shadow.
Yeah, Shoddy Shadow is fantastic.
Yeah. And we get the idea that he and Batwoman, and this is going to make... I want to point out that this movie makes no sense when you actually put all of it together. So throughout most of the film, Shoddy Shadow and Batwoman talk to each other in such a way that they have battled more than once. They know each other and they have fought, and she has always beaten him in some way. We never find out how or what, but we get the idea, because he basically calls him and says, oh, that Batwoman, she's beaten me before, but I've got her now because I've got one of her people. Ha ha ha. You'll hear him later. He's great. He's got a great voice too. So from this, we cut to, I'm not kidding, a pool boogie party where, again, it's just women dancing around for a few minutes. And if you scrub, by the way, I don't know if you found the YouTube video, if you just want to scrub through this in the background so you can see the magnificence of this.
I'm looking at clips, believe me.
Okay.
I understand.
So, there's the whole movie, because I'm going to post the whole movie for people. So we see these girls dancing in bikinis, dancing around. Dun, 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 dun. And there's another woman who's a very tall, blonde woman who's watching them. And then she basically says, okay, that's enough combat training. So this was combat training. Them dancing by a pool was combat training. They then have to repeat this oath. I almost clipped it, but it's just they repeat this oath, which makes this seem like a cult, not a crime-fighting unit. But they repeat this oath a bunch of times, and then Batwoman comes out, and with all these young women skimpily dressed, and her in her outfit, what this looks like is a bat brothel. That's what this looks like. She looks like a madam, and these look like her prostitutes. Right? If this had suddenly changed into that, it would have made complete sense. So then they go inside, and you find out, and you got some hint of this in the opening where they were talking about Article whatever under the whatever charter. They run by some kind of parliamentary system where they all have to discuss their next action. So Batwoman, this is not Batman's training went very awry. This is not being run in the fashion that Batman runs his stuff. Batwoman wants everybody's input. They're consulting the articles of the they don't ever say what, but I guess the Bat cult. And so they have to make decisions that take votes on them. The measure passes, blah, 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 and what they're going to do. And they have bylaws and all the rest of it. So then, as they come to a decision to, go help this girl who's captured, which sort of makes brain dead sense, they get a call from that girl's risk communicator, because that's why Shoddy Shadow wanted her abducted, was to get his hands on the communicator, because apparently he never figured out how to crack their code before this. And so he calls Batwoman to explain why, what he wants from her, and that, that he's got this woman hostage so that she has to help him. And this is their discussion. So you're going to hear Shoddy Shadow and you're going to hear some Batwoman in this. So here is what the plan is from Shoddy Shadow's point of view.
No, my young friend. I'm happy to inform you the girl did not get back her radio. She won't until I'm ready to return it. Are you surprised, Batwoman? Do you know whose voice you're listening to?
I'm afraid I do. And the surprise is not a pleasant one. Well, I might have known you were behind this. What have you done with that girl?
I've done nothing whatsoever, except to extend some very comfortable accommodations. She'll be returned to you quite safely, Batwoman.
And what is the price you're asking?
You know me better than that. I simply need your help to enter a certain building and secure a certain item. I'm of course aware that thievery is not in your line, and I'm sure that you can understand that the operation is a delicate one. If I had someone skillful enough to carry it out for me, I wouldn't have put myself to all this bother. I'm also certain that it's not necessary to discuss the consequences should you refuse to oblige me.
Obliging you is bitter enough consequence in itself. But I'll not take the risk of that girl losing her freedom because of me. You win, Ratfink, but I insist upon seeing her first.
Your distrust of me is grossly unjustified, Batwoman. However, I'll agree to your terms. 12 o'clock, at the top of Hangman's Bluff. My men will meet you there.
Batwoman agrees to these terms. Go ahead.
He's got a great voice.
No, the villain voice is very good. That's why I said you'll hear it at some point. No, he's great as far as the voicing is. It sounds like something you would hear in a Batman cartoon. Like you could hear it.
Yeah.
So they got that completely right. Everything else is on the cheap, but they did get a guy with a good voice. So Batwoman agrees and goes with the Shoddy Shadows men to his lab. And when I almost clipped this, but again, you could clip this whole movie and it's just a laugh riot, basically, when you hear this dialogue at times. They offer her chocolate milk and macaroons before he gets there so that she, has something to eat and drink, which is the specificity of chocolate milk and macaroons is fantastic. And then the doctor, Neon, tries to drug her drink but she swaps the drinks because she's smarter than him. And so he drinks it, and then he just starts dancing. Like this drug of his just makes you dance. So I don't know what the plan was to drug her. Now, we find out later it makes you suggestive, but at this point, all he's doing is dancing in a really awkward way. So I don't know what the point of that would be. It's an attempt at humor, but like many things in this film, if you actually think about, well, what if it had worked, it would make no sense because
she would be dancing.
I guess, because Shoddy Shadow wants to tell her what to do. He's there. He's bringing her there for a serious reason. He's not trying to secretly abduct her. He wants her to help him break into this place because he wants an atomic hearing aid. An atomic hearing aid that will let him eavesdrop on world leaders, I think. When he said atomic hearing aid, I actually had to back the video up and make sure I didn't mishear it. And turn...
Wait. Yeah, exactly. I understand. Yes.
Yes.
What are we talking about here, man?
At that point, I turned the captions on because at this, I realized, okay, I'm either going to be hearing what I think I'm hearing or I'm crazy. So let me just leave these on. So I left the captions on at that point. I would suggest you leave them on because they are funnier to read than anything else. So Batwoman gets that information and then manages to escape. She uses some toy smoke bombs, probably just a little smoke bomb she threw on the floor. And we get some groovy surf music, and then she grabs the girl, and they escape. So they take off and get out, and Shoddy Shadow is very upset about it, but whatever, there's nothing he can do. And then we cut to the company that makes the atomic hearing aid, where we hear the two business partners. One is named JB, and the other is named Flanagan. And the two of them are discussing the atomic hearing aid after just getting a phone call from Batwoman saying, hey, Shoddy Shadow's coming for your atomic hearing aid. So hope you're aware. And this is their discussion.
Flanagan, we're in trouble. Deep, deep trouble.
Oh, take it easy, JB. We don't have to throw in the sponge just because we're hanging on the ropes a little.
That's an understatement. I'd say it was more like being pulled to the corner after a 9 count.
We're not dead yet. Now, look, I have the legal department working overtime. They've got plenty of time to come up with something, JB.
Look, Flanagan, there's been some speculation in my mind about talking to you.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm afraid there exist a few aspects to this business of our patent being denied that I haven't brought out fully before. A few weeks ago, I was contacted by a foreign agent.
A foreign agent? You didn't make a deal with him, did you?
Well, of course I didn't. But through stories carried by his cronies, I'm sure a few people assumed that I did. Oh, look, Flanagan. I realize you've got our legal boys trying to concoct some sort of appeal for us. But the terrible thing is, and I never told you this either, our time limit for destroying that device has run out. We had just 15 days, not 30 as I told everyone.
J.B., you kept that thing here illegally? Hoping we wouldn't have to destroy it?
Well, get ready for the worst part of all. I received a telephone call early this morning from Batwoman. She was good enough to inform me to be on the alert. That extensive planning was being executed for an attempted theft.
Does she know that to be a fact?
If she didn't, she wouldn't have called.
Now, what he's referring to about the patents and destroying the device, because I didn't capture the whole thing. It was 7 or 8 minutes long, whatever it is. So you find out that the atomic hearing aid has a fatal defect that if the atomic power source is exposed to cobalt something, then it can blow up. And that's why the government basically said, oh, destroy it. We can't use it. If it has this defect and you can't fix it within, as he says, he told everybody 30 days, but it was actually 15, then you have to destroy it because we don't want it falling in anybody's hands who can reverse engineer it. If we can't have a working prototype, get rid of it. And he thought he might be able to come up with something, and so he has secretly been keeping it, and now he's telling his partner, right? So the partner is, as you could hear, upset and says, well, wait a minute. Maybe what we can do is we can actually use this threat of the theft to be able to work on the device. If we say, well, we can't destroy it because we can lure in this guy, then maybe that will be a way for us to keep working in the background, or maybe I can get the patent approved or something. We can use this as leverage. So he says, let me go meet with Batwoman. This is Flanagan, the guy who was upset. He says, let me go talk to Batwoman and let me see if she will agree to guard it and use that as a way to be able to finally get her arch nemesis or whatever, right? So Flanagan goes to the Bat Lair and meets with Batwoman, who is...
Wait, and is this all before or after Batwoman was supposed to rob it?
Well, before, because when she escapes, he no longer has leverage to make her go get it.
Got it.
But she knows he wants it, so she suspects he's going to try without her. And she is correct. So she's warning them so that they can have somebody on guard right away because she figures he'll move pretty quickly. So Flanagan goes and finds her in the Bat Lair, and this thing is also unlike Batman. Everybody knows who Batwoman is, where she lives, and that all these women work for her. This is not a secret. She's just in Malibu Hills somewhere with a bat house that has an automated door, and apparently that's enough to protect her, even though there's a whole open side of the house where these girls are dancing half the day as they're combat training, that anybody who could hire a $5 sniper could basically eradicate Batwoman Incorporated in about 15 minutes. But let's not get logic involved in the film.
This is not that world. What's wrong with you?
No, it isn't. So he comes into the room and she's at an organ playing music as all the girls are dancing. And, my note says this is exactly what you'd expect a swinging bat pad to look like on the cheap. And that's what it looks like. So Flanagan comes in, sits down with Batwoman and basically explains, what's going on and says, would you be willing to guard the device and let us see if we can fix this? Because we think it would, because she says something about, well, wouldn't this be, there's a really interesting little bit in here, which I should have clipped, but it's in the middle of a lot of other stuff where she's talking about, well, wouldn't a device like this be a huge invasion of privacy? Wouldn't this be a real problem if the government started spying on people? And he says, well, that's not what we planned for it to do. We just wanted to have it. I think it's just something about it's an easier way to hear your television or something. It's a ridiculous back and forth. But what makes it even more lunatic is that behind them, as they're having this discussion, which in the premise of the movie is serious, two of these Batgirls are playing tug of war with a plastic circle, like a literally looks like a letter O. And they're just playing tug of war in the scene right behind them in prominent view because, Flanagan's on the left, Batwoman's on the right, and there's a space between them. And these two girls are wrestling over a plastic O-ring. It is so, if you pull up the video, I will tell you where it is. It is at 24 minutes and I'll go to 24. Just anybody, if you're not going to watch the whole thing, go to about 24 minutes and 6 seconds and just hit play from there. And you'll see this one girl is playing with this O-ring. And then this other girl, I guess, goes to take it from her. and they just start wrestling over it very actively and ridiculously in the background. It is unbelievable to watch. So anyway,
you said 24 what?
24 minutes. The best part is go to 24 like 30.
Okay.
And you'll see them. They'll be active. They'll start tugging on it. And literally, you'll see one girl reaches over, and then they just start pulling on it back and forth in the midst of this dialogue scene. And it's so weird. It's almost like the actresses got bored and just started playing. I mean, it makes no sense when you watch it because they're like, I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to be combat training. What the hell do I know?
Combat training. That's what it is.
Are you watching it? Are you seeing this thing?
Yeah, I am watching it.
It's just unbelievable. So anyway, Flanagan.
I mean, I love the hair on that lady too. Look at that.
Oh man, the visuals. This movie
Peggy,
is
it looks like Peggy Bundy was one of the Batwomen.
Oh man, does it? One of the reasons to watch this is just the whole '60s thing that's going on here because it's so LSD, surf rock, smorgasbord. You'll have a blast if you like that type of stuff. And I find it kitschy, and I think it's great. So Flanagan manages to convince Batwoman to help them out because they think they can fix it. It might blow up. What if he tries to steal it and they spill cobalt on it? Because I guess people just carry cobalt in 1966. Who the hell knows? And so she agrees, right? So now we go back to Dr. Neon in his lab. And Shoddy Shadow calls up and says, well, I heard through the grapevine that Batwoman is going to be guarding the device, but I still think there's a way we can steal it. So we're going to attempt to break in. He says, you take the goons, take some drugs, and go in there and infiltrate the vault that it's being held on and drug everybody. So we see them show up in this place, and they put on...
And do they make all the girls dance?
Yes, they make everybody dance, and they're wearing, like Super Mario mustaches, and they basically get, they disguise themselves. They drug everybody, and the guards that we see in the vault are basically 4 of these girls with a couple of prop guns, and that's it. That's this highly trained guard is women in civilian clothing. They don't even have bad outfits. They just, 2 of them have machine guns and 2 of them have pistols. That's it. They look bored. They don't look like they're any threat to anything except for, fashion sense. And so they drug everybody. They get the key out of, so Flanagan's there. Batwoman shows up to assess her guard in her bat garb. Again, no secrecy here. And Flanagan's like, well, everything looks fine. Let's go get some lunch because he's clearly into her. And they are age appropriate, so it makes sense in this film because they are about the same age. So they go and they have lunch. So it's actually kind of a sweet, middle-aged love story in that way. It's, it would be endearing if it wasn't so ridiculous. So they're in there, and then for whatever reason, not whatever reason, they only really had to drug Flanagan and get the key, but they drugged the whole commissary. Everybody's dancing and everybody's grooving and, surf rock's playing and they take the key from Flanagan.
It's a groovy show, man.
It's a groovy show, baby. So they drug him. They get the key off him. They steal the key. And as they're leaving, Tiger Pesci sees one of the girls, and I think it's supposed to be the girl from the beginning, and he just really likes her. So he grabs her again and takes her again because everybody's drugged. So he just talks her into going, right? So now we're about halfway through the film. And now the girl has been taken hostage again. They've got the atomic hearing aid. And now, for some reason, the government patent men show up to assess whether they should extend the patent. They just happen to show up, though, after this theft has happened. And JB, the partner who was concealing the time limit thing, is now with Batwoman. And so they come in, and one of the Batgirls greets them and says, yeah, JB's here, but you can't talk to him yet because Batwoman's about to conduct a seance. And then we get a seance. I'm not kidding. And then we get a seance. Now, I will warn everybody that as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, but I'm telling you. So the seance starts, and there's a comedic bit that involves somebody that's supposed to be speaking Chinese. Now, I don't speak Chinese. But
I don't think they do either.
I'm relatively sure that this is a horribly racist caricature of somebody speaking Chinese. I could be wrong, but I'm just warning everybody now. This is 1966.
It's going to be bad. Got it.
So quick caution, this may not be actual Chinese being spoken. So I'm not playing the seance goes on for a while. This is just 3 minutes of it. So here you go.
We must concentrate ourselves fully and thusly penetrate.
Oh God, this is great seance music, though.
We must call upon an etheric guide who will contact those at this table within the next few moments. May we hear a voice, a sign that this message is being received by those beyond the physical plane. We call out to the world of spirits. Will someone please come through?
I am trying. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you plainly. I wish to thank you for coming to us.
It is perfectly all right. What can I do for you?
It is desired by those at this table to locate a missing device, one of an electronic nature. It was stolen from Mr. Christian's here only a few hours ago. I emphasize the importance of locating it immediately, as it could be highly dangerous. The individuals who harbor it may not be aware of its explosive potential. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to repeat the message. It sounded like Chinese.
I am sorry. Please give more information.
The device was stolen from the Ajax Development Company. I'm aware of the thief's identity, but not his whereabouts. He has a hidden laboratory somewhere along the coast. I was there a short time ago, but it was in the middle of the night, and I was unable to take note of any landmarkings. The location of this laboratory is what we ask you to help us with. I must emphasize again that it's most important. You're speaking in Chinese again.
That's
I
not
have to
Chinese.
inform you that no one here is familiar with Oriental languages.
Neither are
Speak to
they.
us only in English.
Oh, wait, it gets better.
Do you understand?
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
I that speaks another tongue. This would be another entity.
So we have a party line where another spirit is crashing.
Could you
is the
please
point.
leave the channel free so I can communicate with the other gentlemen?
Oh,
I'm sure
man.
you're
Could you
trying to
please
assist
hang
us.
up?
However, I can't comprehend a word you're saying.
Oh, my
Thank
God.
you very much. Now, may we get on with the information?
So the idea of the joke there is that a foreign spirit jumped on the call and was trying to help. As far as we understand, that other spirit, it was not Chinese, obviously. I'm just saying. You
No,
had to be
it's
ready for it.
terrible.
Horrible.
Terrible. Yeah.
But it is actually kind of a funny joke if it was not horribly racist, that the idea is, well, when you're having a seance, you can't guarantee that another spirit won't just jump in and doesn't assume that you know how to speak its language. So it's almost funny when she's saying, can you clear the channel? And the other spirit's like, yeah, that's not me. I'm speaking English. I don't know who that is. That is actually the closest this movie comes to genuine humor, where the seance is crowded. But shortly after this, it goes on because that spirit keeps talking slowly and is asking for more information, and they're speaking. And then JB, the guy who hid the time limit, says, I'll just call him the head of the company. The head of the company says, you know what? It's getting late. I have to go to bed now. So can we stop this? So they just stop the seance before they can get the location, even though this is extremely important to this person because he needs to go home and go to bed. So they leave. They break this thing up. The patent guys who've watched this whole thing, their concern isn't that the heads of this company that is contracting a major device with the government are talking to a woman in a madam's party outfit as she's conducting a seance with a slow-talking lurch ghost and a racist Chinese ghost.
Why you gotta hate on Batwoman? Everyone loves Batwoman. She's got a whole cult of crime fighters. Come on.
She does, but their problem isn't any of that, so you're right. They're obviously far more progressive than I am. They say, well, yeah, I don't care about that, but have you fixed the explosion problem? Because if not, we can't give you the patent. And of course they haven't, so JB is all worried and he's very concerned.
Well, maybe he shouldn't have canceled the seance.
Maybe he shouldn't, but the good news is Batwoman manages to guess the location of the lab anyway, so this was pointless. So they end up figuring out...
no, it's not pointless. We had the opportunity to act out some extreme racism.
Well, that's true. That's true. And an attempt at a joke that were handled better would actually probably have been funny. Obviously, without the racism and the ability to talk a little bit faster by the English spirit, I guess we'll call him. So then we cut to surf rock in a club for no reason for a while. And then we find out, oh no, this is on a beach. And we see, they're just dancing and there's guys playing guitar and they're kind of boogieing, doing the twist and all that stuff. And this goes on for a little while. And then one of the girls is the lieutenant and she comes in and says, all right, that's enough fun. Now we have to go to the beach and break into the lab. So we cut back to the lab and Faux Pesci is getting dance lessons from the girl that he took prisoner. So now we've got some Stockholm syndrome happening where she's teaching him how to dance even though she's in a cage. But, he's talking nice to her and, he's trying to cozy up to her and she seems at least partially receptive to him not being a complete scumbag. And this is this movie's attempt to humanize him because he'll end up being a good guy by the end. But, not for the fact that she's, of course, a prisoner that's been taken prisoner twice and that she's being held against her will. No, he's just kind of a nice guy. So as this is going on, Bruno the Goon comes in and says, and Faux Pesci's there and Neon's there. And he says, hey, Batwoman and the gang are coming. And so then we cut to the outside of the beach and we see that the Batgirls just kind of wander around with no weaponry, looking like they're just kind of strolling. And Shoddy Shadow, weaponry. No, they're so good that Shoddy Shadow takes all of them down without them ever seeing him. And he snatches them all and puts them into chains. And so they're all now captured. And we see that Faux Pesci is still hitting on this girl. And Neon has been going on over and over throughout this movie about his monsters, that he has monsters, that he created monsters, that he loves his monsters. He hasn't seen them in a while. And Faux Pesci mentions it and says, hey, you want to see something groovy? There's some monsters over in the cave. Let's go look at them, right? So they all go to meet with Shoddy Shadow in his secret lab in his cave. He has a cave. Batwoman has a beach house. Shoddy Shadow has a shadow cave. So again, they're just mixing everything up here. So they arrive in this lab, which is obviously the exact same set that the other guy's lab was, except they turned it around. And so they're in there. And when they get in there, Neon decides to finally stand up to, Shoddy Shadow about his monsters because he's sick of not seeing his precious monsters. And we get this bit of dialogue. Now, this is at about 52 minutes into an hour and 6 minute long film, we get this that suddenly gets introduced.
Oh, but I want to ask you that thing.
Yes, Neon?
Well, it's been several days now, and I just want to look in on them to see if everything is nice. Then I will come right back, I promise you.
Never mind the monsters, Neon. I just looked in on them myself.
But you never let me see them anymore. You're always putting me off. They are my monsters, Ratwing. I created them with these hands, with this mind.
Are you saying, Neon, that my own creations are something less than yours?
No, of course not, Ratwing. We both know that the value of your great work will bring to the world. Why, it will bring,
You will be quite pleased to know, Neon, that all of your monsters will soon be multiplied.
Multiplied?
Why do you think I have these girls here? Better mating partners would be difficult to find. The offspring should be most interesting.
Those girls are my monsters. That's wonderful.
We do get to see these monsters.
He's gonna mate them with the women? Okay.
Apparently. Again, this is with 14 minutes left in the movie, or so. We see the monsters. They're guys in, Halloween mole men masks that are digging around in the dirt. That's all there are. There's nothing spectacular about them at all. So yeah, we get this whole cross-pollination plot that comes out of nowhere that never comes up again. Again, this is like the synthetic vampire thing. It's brought up as if it's supposed to make Shoddy Shadow some kind of super Machiavellian monster or whatever. It doesn't do anything and it goes nowhere because, as you're going to find out, none of this makes any sense. So, as this happens, we're finally told, even though we kind of know, that Faux Pesci is actually in love with the Batgirl. He says, I'm in love with her. And for whatever reason, All of the rest of the bad guys don't gang up on him or chain him up. They all start clapping and congratulating him as if he just announced his engagement to her. It is really bizarre. And so Shadow gets upset because he says, okay, enough tomfoolery. This is a lab. He's very big about science. And he says, I don't want to hear any more about this. And suddenly Batwoman breaks in and says, no. My plan was to have you capture my girls all along so that I could track their locations and find you, even though they knew where the lab was. But this was her plan all along. So she comes in and she corners him with some kind of what he calls a female bat gun or something. He says something about a female weapon device. I don't even know what it was supposed to be. It's just like a gun with a little dish on the front. So now we suddenly get, he gets upset. And he does something. I think he throws a beaker or whatever. I couldn't even tell what he did. And now there's 8 of them. He starts multiplying. So he's all over the place. And then surf music breaks out. And they're all chasing each other around and kind of wrestling. And it's goofy and silly and stupid. And then what you figure out is that whatever he did, because it looks like everybody's having fun, including Shadow. And you figure out is that whatever he did to multiply himself also drugged them, so that they're all kind of just dancing, and that was because he was trying to distract them so that he could escape. But Batwoman figures it out somehow and basically corners him and says, nope, that's it. I've got you. I've got a gun on you now for real. I'm going to shoot you or whatever. So now let's find out who you are. And we're going to get the reveal. This is at 59 minutes. So there's 7 minutes left in this movie, including credits, that we're going to get the reveal of who he is, finally, because Batwoman has never known his true identity, and now we're going to find out who he is and get an explanation. And wait till you hear what this is.
The little game has finally come to an end.
You'll not win out over me, Batwoman. I'll see that we all go sky high. You know what's in this bottle? It's Cobalt 40. A few drops of this on the hearing aid, and the atoms will begin to split.
Batwoman, he knows about the mixture.
I'll do it, Batwoman. I'll do it if you force my hand.
Now, wait a minute, Ratfink. What about the rest of us? I don't want to die because of you.
You're a think, Ratfink.
And that's it, Ratfink. Remove his mask.
J.B. Yes, Flanagan. It's me.
But, mean all these years you've been leading a double life? You went to all this trouble to steal your own invention?
I had to do it. The patent office kept all the blueprints. I couldn't have made another model. They insisted on personally watching it being destroyed. I couldn't allow that. I just have one little weakness.
Weakness? What weakness?
Well, we all have our little throwbacks, little idiosyncrasies. My weakness is, I know this sounds trifling, but I can't help myself. I like to listen in on telephone conversations. The hearing aid was designed for that purpose. I realized that only by having it stolen from myself could I hope to have it preserved.
It won't be preserved for long, and neither will we.
He spilled the cobalt on it.
It's too late. It's seeping through the outer covers.
What do you mean too late?
They're now playing hot potato with the device.
We
Just
gotta
so you know
find a
what's
way out of
happening.
here.
Which one?
We must swim out through the ocean, directly to the surface. It's a long way out.
In a few minutes will be the only way out. Everyone, move!
Right. So let's recap what we've covered here, because there's a lot in just this 2 minutes of whatever. So it's the president of the company has done all this and has sparred with Batwoman all over a hearing aid device that he made because his fetish is to eavesdrop on phone conversations. And he did, so the cross-pollinating mutant men thing, what that has to do with this, no explanation. Why he and Batwoman have gone back and forth over the years over a patent dispute, unexplained. Why he has 2 labs, and the partner doesn't know about it because apparently he has a whole company that he could use to develop this product. None of this makes any sense. It's just buffoonery, right? There's no reasoning for this. It's the Scooby-Doo thing where they pull the mask off and it was him all along. Well, if not for you meddling kids, I would have gotten away with it.
Well, that's kind of the era, isn't it?
That really is. And so the Renfield character is left holding the device, which blows up, right? Next thing we see is everybody's on the beach except for Shoddy Shadow, who had escaped, but he's now just gone. But the Renfield guy, he's there. So apparently the explosion just shot him out, but killed Shadow somehow. And now he's suddenly acting like a normal person. At which point Neon explains, oh, well, yeah, the reason he was like that is because I was doing some experiments and I gave him this drug and I thought it was going to make him smarter, but what it actually did is it turned him into an idiot. And the guy's like, oh, verily, yes, he did. But the explosion has cured me because basically it gave me a knock on my head and now I'm okay. And Neon, I forgive you. Whatever, the pursuit of science. You know, weird things happen. So then we cut. Now we're back at the lair, Batwoman's lair. Faux Pesci is now basically dating the girl and dancing with all the girls as surf rock music plays. We see Renfield and Neon are there in beach chairs having martinis or whatever. As far as I could tell, they could be lovers the way that they're kind of carrying on, which is sort of a sweet ending, I guess, for them. Shadow's dead, gone, vaporized, whatever. I don't know what happened to Flanagan. I guess he just went back to running the company. And then the movie just ends while you watch girls dance by a pool. And the movie just ends. And that's the wide world of Batwoman.
It sounds very much like a product of its time.
Oh, look, it's very, very, very cheap and badly acted, right? So let's just say that off the top. That should be evident. But it is entertaining to watch because it's such a poor ripoff that is drenched in the trappings of its time. That it is, I mean, plus it's only an hour long. I mean, it's not like it's really long. And the music's good, like the surf music's good. And you kind of just look at it and sit there and go, wow, how could they not have, A, expected to be sued? The amazing part is that they beat the lawsuit from Warner Brothers. I don't know how they did. I can't imagine they had $5 to fight it, but somehow they managed to fight it off. So, A, you're inviting a lawsuit because they keep saying Batwoman, which was a character in the comics. It's not like they came up with a new version, a new name.
Yeah, and DC didn't exist well enough to go after them at this point.
Well, but Warner Brothers did, and they owned the show. That's what I'm saying is this was when the show was on. So this is not DC. This is Warner Brothers.
It wasn't Batwoman, though. It was Batgirl.
Well, no, Batwoman existed.
No, I'm pretty sure in the Adam West show it was Batgirl.
Well, no, okay, yes, but Warner Brothers and DC, I believe. Well, let's see. I'm curious. Hold on a minute. I'm curious when. So the original Batwoman was from when? Silver Age. When's Silver Age? Silver Age is 56 to 70. So I don't know exactly when Batwoman showed up, but Silver Age is around that time. And let's take a look at DC Comics and when they were owned by Warner Brothers, because the lawsuit, I believe, was from Warner Brothers. So maybe it could be that Warner Brothers had licensed all the Batman stuff, including all the characters. That's possible. Although their headquarters has always been Warner Boulevard. So, oh no, when did they get acquired? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like I said, there was a lawsuit that was by Warner Brothers, which was not a nobody in the 60s. I mean, that's the height of film production, right? So the surprising part is that they beat the lawsuit, because this does seem like it. I mean, the music, the titles spin just like the Batman titles did when it spins in. There's a million things.
I doubt that it would win the lawsuit today.
Yeah, it may be at the time.
That lady, that trans lady Joker movie.
Yeah, I saw that just one. Yeah, the People's Joker.
Won,
yeah,
and that is
Yeah, so
same kind of lawsuit.
Look, I'm thrilled the movie exists to be seen, because I had a blast with it. It really was. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is garbage, budget wise. There's no quality to this thing, but somehow the willingness to ignore how stupid the thing they're doing is makes the movie charming. There is this endearing quality to seeing something this poorly constructed that doesn't feel like it is mean. It just feels doofy. And maybe that's because this feels like something that people on acid made. Like, this is a 60s film this way. And the fact that it just keeps cutting to them dancing for no reason, among all the other little kind of things about it. And the fact that it's about an atomic hearing aid.
Dancing is because that's what you do in that time period, man. You
dance. And the primary thing the villain is after is a fetish hearing aid. He wants to eavesdrop on people's phone conversations. That is some villain motivation that I don't think you see in many films and TV today. Not this level of petty machination is not often present anymore. I actually enjoy the fact, because I often talk about, I like when stories are small scale. Boy, you couldn't get smaller scale than this. One guy wants to feed. This is like Quentin Tarantino stealing an atomic X-ray foot viewer.
Well, this is like the Adam West Joker. He's like, I'm gonna steal everyone's left shoe.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. So in that way,
and then the modern day Joker is like, I'm gonna kill everybody.
And here's, you actually hit on my final point about this type of movie. This would not seem out of place in an Adam West episode. That wouldn't be this long, because I think the Adam West.
No, but she would have. But she would have been like Madame Bat or something like that.
Well, it would have been Batman versus probably Catwoman stealing an atomic hearing aid because she wanted to listen in on armored truck movements. But the fundamentals of how silly this is are not out of place for Batman of the time. That's the other thing, is if you reframe your idea of Batman to that time period.
Oh no,
this is perfectly reasonable.
Perfectly,
yeah. So to be able to say that with a straight face, this type of story is perfectly reasonable for Batman of the time. That right there tells you everything you need to know. So I had a blast with it. It's goofy and silly and dumb, but it's also harmless and charming because it's a relic of its era, and it is what Batman was to a lot of people at that time. We don't remember, a lot of people don't remember that now or don't know of that because they're too young. But Batman was not always gritty, Christian Bale serious, and
no, it was
post Dark Knight Returns.
He had a
there was a bat dog, there was Batmite, there was a bat everything.
Anti-shark spray.
Right, exactly. So that's what I mean about this thing is a relic that is still entertaining. Because again, it's free and it's short. So go watch it on YouTube if you want to just see something that's a hell of a time capsule thing. And you'll have a good time with it. It's stupid. I'm not going to convince you it's not. But it's far from the worst kind of stupid.
Stupid can be fun.
But you know what? Actually, I'll say this with absolute seriousness. And I don't mean this to be insulting, because I know I just said it was stupid. But at the same time, I don't like Adam West Batman. I don't like it. I don't like any of that humor. It's not for me. Just isn't. But if that is your thing, you might actually find this to be a fun thing to watch. Because, yes, it's missing the outfits. But the way everybody operates is pretty much an Adam West Batman thing. So maybe that's why they sued it. They thought people might actually confuse this with maybe a non-produced episode. It's possible. So you might have a lot of fun with this. It is a fun thing to watch because it is silly, but it's quick. And you get some great stuff. The seance thing is horrible on one end. But on the other, the fact that Batwoman stops to have a seance because she's a synthetic vampire who runs a cult of young go-go dancers who basically are probably using unlicensed firearms.
Honestly, if someone took the idea and made a modern movie out of it with a moderate budget with today's technology, you could actually make it very amusing.
It's Batwoman Incorporated. That's what I'm saying. This isn't that far from things we've seen in the Batman canon. It's just that put together like this with no money and really almost no talent. Yeah, it's a joke, but it's not like it. Like you said, it could have been. If this had been aired with seriousness, if this woman had gotten a proper bat suit and been in the Adam West show with this storyline, it would not have stood out as unusual. They wouldn't have done the synthetic vampire. They would have jettisoned that, of course. That's for the movie. But if they took out a couple of small things that were to dodge a lawsuit, this could work.
You know what? I bet you this would have been a better movie than Madame Spider.
Oh, no doubt about it. Madame Web.
Madame Web, there you go.
No doubt about it. So like I said, it's fun, it's short, it's silly, it's on YouTube for free. Go watch it. Especially if you like the Adam West era stuff, then you'll probably get at least a chuckle out of this because it will seem so misguidedly charming. I had a good time with it. An hour and 6 minutes.
There are worse things you can do with your night.
Way worse things you can do with an hour and 6 minutes. So go forth and enjoy it. And that's my only review because I had to play all those clips because, oh man, Batgirl 14 to Batwoman. I'm keeping that one. I don't know what I'd ever use it for, but I ain't getting rid of Batgirl 14 to Batwoman. reporting a crime. Call the cops. Fantastic. Well done, Bat Cult. On that note, everybody, have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk to you again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.